So there I am, standing right in the middle of Sin Square, looking like some absolute shady-ass used car salesman. Except, instead of trying to push lemons onto people, I was out here recruiting warm bodies for my dumpster fire of a territory. Hey lady, you wouldn't want your kid starving at school, now would you? I said, flashing my most punchable, sleazy grin. Then I immediately pivoted to the next guy in line. And what about you, buddy? Wouldn't it be just tragic if your daughter got dragged off to the red light district over some unpaid debts? Exactly. Yep, that's my elite recruitment strategy. Straight up threats, guilt trips, and toxic emotional blackmail. Real high-class stuff, I know. But hey, it actually worked. I managed to scrape together 100 people. Sure, half of them looked like they couldn't even lift a spoon without breaking a sweat. But beggars literally can't be choosers. And trust me, I am the ultimate beggar right now. See, on paper I'm a lord. Sounds fancy and prestigious, right? Wrong. I'm the lowest tier imaginable, the absolute bottom of the barrel. The system gave me the worst possible hand to play. And the kicker? I was a top student. Literally #1 in my class. Yet the universe rewarded my hard work with a domain so utterly pathetic that people instantly lose all respect for me the exact second I mention its name. Anyway, we finally headed over to the teleportation plaza. I flashed my shiny, golden lord token, and the attendant immediately snapped to attention with a deep bow. Oh, a newly awakened lord. Please forgive my utter rudeness, your grace. I shrugged and told him our destination. West Zone, H73. The guy immediately froze and stared at me like I just told him. I eat my soup with a fork. All that newfound respect, poof, vanished into thin air. It was instantly replaced by pure pity and a heavy dose of, wow, major skill issue. Sucks to be you. Honestly, I've been getting that exact look so much lately, I should probably just print it on a t-shirt at this point. With no time to waste, we all stepped into the massive magic circle. A blinding flash of light consumed us, and boom, we materialized right in the heart of my new domain. My beautiful, wonderful, and absolutely godforsaken wasteland of a territory. I looked over at my ragtag crew of 100 profoundly confused civilians, clapped my hands together, and put on a brave face. All right, squad, pack it in. Time to earn your keep. Meanwhile, back at the station, the teleportation operator was sweating bullets, pulling fried, burnt-out magic crystals straight from the summoning circle, while muttering under his breath, man, the last time I saw a lord with this much bad luck. Well, let's just say they didn't make it. Thanks, buddy. Super encouraging. Now, let me give you the breakdown on this continent. It's called Eltrance, and it's absolutely packed with every single fantasy race imaginable. Humans, elves, beastfolk, dwarves, you name it. We're talking over 100 different species all crammed onto one massive piece of land, constantly throat-cutting each other for resources, like a bunch of toxic toddlers fighting over the last slice of pizza. For literal centuries, everyone was way too busy throwing hands with their neighbors to notice the actual threat creeping up. About 200 years ago, these terrifying monsters known as the Black Beasts crawled out from some desolate highlands in the far west. At first, nobody gave a single crap. Oh look, some weird mutated animals showed up. Whatever, we've got an elf empire to burn down. Big mistake. Monumental mistake. These things multiply like rabbits on an absolute caffeine bender. By the time anyone actually looked up from their petty little tribal wars, there were tens of millions of black beasts, steamrolling across the entire continent, like a living, breathing tidal wave, devouring everything with a pulse. It didn't matter if you were a proud, noble elf, a high and mighty giant, or a sneaky little goblin. To the black beasts, every single one of them was just lunch with a slightly different flavor profile. The absolute worst part? The more they gorged themselves, the faster they cloned themselves. It was like a literal horror movie buffet. Every single casualty spawned 10 more monsters. The mortal armies couldn't even keep up. Over a dozen entire species were completely erased from existence, and billions of lives became nothing but beast food. The entire continent was literally 5 minutes away from a total, unrecoverable game over. But right when everyone was ready to give up and write their final wills, the Holy Court of Light pulled off a miracle. A colossal, towering tree of light erupted straight out of the ground in the southern region of the continent, and its blinding radiance actually froze the black beasts dead in their tracks. Every single surviving race sprinted toward that holy tree, like it was the absolute last lifeboat on a rapidly sinking Titanic. 30 legendary light priests clutched the ultimate sacrifice to carve out a safe zone, right around the Damoka Mountains. Fast forward through decades of brutal, non-stop grind, everyone pulling together, hauling supplies, and stacking walls to finally build the light domain. Essentially, humanity's last shopping mall, final safe haven, and tucked away in the absolute furthest corner of this sanctuary, on the most garbage, completely cursed plot of land imaginable, sits my brand new territory. Lucky me, right? Alright, let me break down the insane mess I'm currently stuck in. So, this light domain, my new home sweet home, is basically just a massive, supersized safe zone, anchored by a magical, glowing tree and a bunch of mountain ranges. Picture a giant rectangle spanning roughly 7,500 kilometers wide and 2,500 tall. Throw in a random peninsula and a few scattered islands, and you get a grand total of 20 million square kilometers. Sounds massive, right? Yeah, it's huge, but let's be real, it's a glorified cage. Because outside, nothing but bloodthirsty black beasts as far as the eye can see. We're basically just golden fish trapped inside a very large, very upscale bowl. Now, back in the day, some arrogant racist thought living inside a bowl was beneath them. We are proud warriors. We don't hide like cowards, or whatever they claimed. So, they proudly marched out to reclaim their ancient homelands. Super brave, truly inspiring, and instantly dead. Every single one of them became a glorified happy meal for the black beasts, after throwing away millions of elite soldiers to serve as a literal catering service for nightmare monsters. Everyone finally clapped their hands and said, "You know what? This bowl is fine. Actually, this bowl is amazing. I absolutely love the bowl." So, humanity chilled inside the light domain, peacefully for about 50 years. But then, the tree of life did something totally wild. It started aggressively spitting out seeds. Exactly 100 mystical seeds every single year. And each seed handpicks one lucky 18-year-old to become an official lord. Here's the catch. The moment you get chosen, you receive your seed, and the tree literally yeets you to some completely random coordinates, deep outside the safe zone. Once there, your seed glows and activates a tiny bubble of protection. It spans about 300 meters across. Sounds pretty cozy, right? Yeah, that's because it's literally just 300 meters. That is barely enough space to have a proper, full-blown panic attack. Oh, and here's the catch. It only lasts for 15 days. After that, you're literally just dinner for the black beasts. But here is where the real cheat code comes in. This seed lets you build a specialized, overpowered army that can actually shred through black beasts like butter. Regular fighters have to hack a black beast into like 50 separate pieces just to kill it. But a lord's army? Just a couple of swings, maybe even one. And that is exactly why lords are such a massive deal. The light domain is completely desperate for them. See, there are 20 billion people from dozens of different races crammed into this place. Wait, sorry, 2 billion. But trust me, it feels like 20. And the population has literally exploded tenfold in just 200 years. To make matters worse, only a third of the land is even livable. If it weren't for the lords conquering territories outside and shipping back vital food, rare minerals and livestock, this entire civilization would have plunged into pure chaos centuries ago. So yeah, becoming a lord instantly makes you an absolute VIP. You're straight at the top of the social food chain. Elite parties, endless respect, the whole 9 yards. The massive downside? The death rate is absolutely astronomical. Because remember that little seed protecting you? 15 days and your free trial expires. You have to feed it and evolve it into an actual full-grown tree, or you are quite literally toast. Imagine being surrounded by millions of bloodthirsty monsters, with nothing but a nightlight that's actively running out of batteries. And that brings us to me, a certified, brand new lord as of exactly 7 days ago. Now, fun fact about me, I'm not actually from this world at all. Surprise. Your boy is a transmigrator. Back in my old life, I was just a perfectly average guy who was, let's just say, playing doctor and nurse, with my incredibly gorgeous landlady. Look, it was purely a strategic move to save on rent, okay? It had absolutely nothing to do with any alternative motivations. My big brain was completely in charge here. 100%. Anyway, her boyfriend ended up coming home way too early. So I did what any rational, rent-saving gentleman would do in that situation. I dove straight out the window and somehow woke up here. reborn into an entirely different world. As a child. Not even as some edgy teenager with mysterious, overpowered abilities. Just a snot-nosed kid who wasn't even 10 years old yet. My glorious, shredded 8-pack? Gone. Any overpowered cheat system or golden finger? Nope. Absolutely zero. The universe. Straight up scammed me and didn't even drop a starter pack. Honestly, if the light domain didn't have a basic welfare program, I would have starved to death before my own story even kicked off. So now I'm watching my 100 recruits clumsily digging trenches and setting up walls, and I can't help but wonder, was playing doctor with another guy's girl really bad enough to deserve all this? I mean, yeah, it was a little shady, I'll admit that, but getting Ice Guide into a death game? Talk about overkill. And yet, here I am, a lord ruling over the worst wasteland in existence, a ticking 15-day timer on my protective shield, 100 peasants who can barely shovel in a straight line, and the tragic memory of abs I'll never see again. Living the absolute dream, right? So, let me break down the completely unhinged situation I'm currently dealing with. You remember that tree of life seed keeping me alive? Yeah, it needs fuel. And what's its diet? Energy crystals harvested straight from the black beasts. The exact same monsters the tree is supposed to protect me from in the first place. That's like finding out your fire extinguisher is literally fueled by gasoline. Who even engineered this system? I need 10 level 1 crystals just to sprout this seed into an actual tree. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. Because these beasts only drop a crystal about 10% of the time, meaning I have to slaughter at least 100 of them in under 15 days, starting with absolutely nothing. Now, here is where building an army gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean incredibly painful. I've got 2 paths to recruit soldiers. Option A, let the seed spawn units directly. We're talking elite, instant, battle-ready warriors. Sounds amazing until you run the math. My seed only has 1,000 energy points. Each elite soldier costs 50. That's 20 soldiers max. 20 guys against a horde of thousands of monsters? That's not an army, that's a 5-star buffet. Option B, recruit actual people from the light domain, then drop the seed to convert them into soldiers. It only costs a measly 10 energy per pop, meaning I can lock in 100 troops. 5 times more. The catch? They are absolutely abysmal. Literal bottom of the barrel trash tier. These guys would get bodied by an angry chicken. Plus, I have to supply all their gear myself. Straight out of my non-existent budget, with my completely imaginary cash. So my choices are 20 elite super soldiers, who will instantly get swarmed and overwhelmed, or 100 bargain bin plebs, who might accidentally shank each other. I went with option B obviously, which is exactly why I was out there, guilt-tripping moms and shaking down dads. In the town square, quantity over quality, baby, and trust me, the numbers don't lie about how lethal this gig is. Over the last 150 years, roughly 15,000 lords have been minted. How many are still breathing? Less than 500. That survival rate is so insanely low. It makes skydiving without a parachute look like a safe, wholesome hobby. But here's the twist that makes my story wild. Every lord spawns military units based on their race and their fundamental worldview. If you're an elf lord, you get elegant archers. Tree people get druids. Super on-brand, right? Human lords? They pull magic knights and battle mages. Standard fantasy stuff. All 99 other rookie lords this year rolled some high-tier magic or ore-infused troops. But me, I got stuck with the technology branch. Yeah, technology. In a world purely powered by mana and battle aura. You know who else relies on tech in this realm? Goblins. The literal joke species that everyone views as the classroom glue eater. That's my tech predecessor. Goblins. When the other lords found out, they clowned on me so hard I thought a few of them might actually rupture an organ. Oh, look, the new guy unlocked the goblin build. How cute. But here's what those magic-wielding casuals don't understand. My tech isn't garbage goblin scrap. We aren't talking about some rusty crossbow, literally held together by duct tape and prayers. But my tech comes straight from Earth. A powerhouse civilization that literally split the atom, conquered the moon, and perfected the art of 30-minute pizza delivery. The gap between this garbage goblin tech and modern Earth tech is wider than the IQ gap between a human and a goofy husky. Actually, that's insulting to huskies. At least they're cute. Look, the reason I got stuck with the tech tree is simple. I'm an ice guy protagonist. I grew up on Earth. I never learned high magic and I never trained in battle energy. During my miserable years in the light domain, I was stuck at the absolute bottom of the food chain. The elites who wield magic and battle energy here, they're the ultra-rich and powerful. For someone like me to even look at them was like a homeless guy trying to become best friends with a billionaire. Theoretically possible, but practically a total pipe dream. So when the seed scanned my brain to see what kind of world knowledge I had, it found absolutely zero magic affinity, zero combat energy experience, and a massive overflowing database on guns, heavy tanks, and things that go boom. Those other lords can keep laughing all they want. They've got their flashy magic swords and glowing spell circles, but I've got the ultimate flex, the entire scientific blueprint of a planet that spent most of human history inventing insanely creative ways to blow stuff up. Let's see, who's laughing when I roll up with a fully automatic machine gun? With that in mind, I approached my glowing seed, this floating, soft white orb of light that serves as my literal life support system, and placed my hand right on it. Instantly, my consciousness was sucked into a massive, empty void. Think of it like a giant shopping mall, except the mall only has one single store, and that store only stocks 2 items. Yeah, welcome to the most pathetic weapon shop in history. See, every lord spawns military units based on their current level. Magic lords start out with basic apprentices, who can fire off pathetic little fireballs. Battle energy lords get low-tier warriors, and as they level up, they unlock insane high-tier troops. But me? I'm currently a level 0 lord. Not even level 1 yet. Reaching level 1 requires actually sprouting a light tree, which I haven't done yet because, well, I've been grinding 24/7 just to stay alive. And my grand, legendary, supposedly awe-inspiring starter weapon is a hand cannon. And not some sleek sci-fi plasma blaster either. Bro, I'm talking about the absolute oldest, most primitive firearm in human history. Literally just a metal tube slapped onto a wooden stick. To even fire this thing, one guy has to aim while another guy lights the literal fuse. It takes 2 whole people just to get a single shot off. It's basically an oversized firework with major anger issues. Compared to an actual modern firearm, this is like entering a tricycle into a Formula 1 race. It's slow, incredibly clumsy, wildly inaccurate, and about as intimidating as a wet paper towel. But, and this is a massive but, it's still a gun, and guns pack 2 game-changing advantages that I am completely banking my survival on. Cheat code number 1. The training time. Do you have any idea how long it takes to mold a master archer? We're talking months, if not years. To become a legitimately lethal swordsman? Same exact story. Even mastering a basic spear demands weeks of brutal practice. Meanwhile, I've got exactly 7 days before the black beasts come knocking. 7 days. To somehow transform 100 criminals and random peasants into a lethal army. But with this hand cannon? Give me a few days. Hell, maybe just a few hours. You point the tube at the monster, light the fuse, and pray. That is literally the entire tutorial. If you look at real-world history, this is the exact reason why firearms completely replaced swords. Because you could take a completely clueless peasant, who had never even touched a weapon, hand him a gun, give him a quick 5-minute rundown, and boom. He can instantly delete a legendary knight who's been training since childhood. Trading 20 raw peasants just to take down 1 elite knight? That is an absolute steal. That's Black Friday doorbuster pricing for warfare. Cheat code number 2. Sheer armor-piercing power. Now this is the real kicker. See, it doesn't matter how easy your weapon is to handle. If it bounces right off the enemy's skin, 100 dudes swinging pool noodles are still completely useless against heavy armor. But gunpowder? That's pure chemistry, baby. That chemical energy absolutely obliterates anything mere human muscles could ever dream of producing. A projectile propelled by a raw, contained explosion. It doesn't matter how thick your armor is. Firepower completely breaks the meta. It instantly levels the playing field for everyone. And if guns can absolutely shred elite armored knights, I'm betting they'll do the exact same to those black beasts. So, I opened up my shopping cart in this magical weapon shop and started crunching the numbers, my absolute favorite hobby, right behind staying alive. 1 hand cannon costs 3 energy points. A kilo of gunpowder is just 1 energy point. And 10 kilos of lead ammo? Also 1 energy point. My total starting capital. was 1,000 points minus the 100 I already dropped. On upgrading my raw recruits. Alright, I've got 100 troops working in pairs, so I need at least 50 guns minimum. But 50 guns. Against a literal horde of thousands of black beasts? That's a joke. I need serious backup options. Replacements for when these things inevitably jam or break. And extras for when someone inevitably fumbles theirs into a ditch. So I went big and added 150 hand cannons to the cart. That's 450 energy points gone. Ouch. Next, I grabbed 500 kilos of gunpowder for another 500 points. Yeah, that is a terrifying amount of explosive power, and I have massive plans for it way beyond just loading guns. With my last 50 points, I bought 500 kilos of lead bullets. Now, you might be asking why buy this much raw material? Because I'm not just manufacturing standard ammo, my friends. I'm building high-yield explosives. We're talking satchel charges, makeshift claymores, and that good old-fashioned strategy. Pack powder into a shell, shove in some lethal shrapnel, light the fuse, chuck it and run. Against a massive swarm of thousands of monsters. A single gun going. Pop every few minutes isn't going to do anything. But a massive, beautiful bomb detonating right in the dead center of a dense pack of black beasts? Now that is peak tactical efficiency. Every other lord in this world is probably out there summoning glowing mythical swords and legendary enchanted armor right now. While here I am buying explosive gunpowder in bulk. Like a medieval Costco member prepping for doomsday. But you know what? Gunpowder completely reshaped human history once. And I'm about to make reality repeat itself. Look, let's be totally real for a second. I know my situation is dire. 100 untested troops with basic hand cannons. Versus an endless tidal wave of black beasts. It sounds like an epic strategy until you actually look at the math. Picture this. 50 teams, 3 rounds of shooting each. Shout out to my absolute genius move of buying 150 guns. But after those 3 rounds, yeah, it's reload time. And we're talking dozens of seconds per shot. In that tiny window, a black beast can blitz right up to us. And turn my face into its personal chew toy. So, those hand cannons? They're honestly just the appetizer. The real main course of this strategy is my beautiful, custom-crafted, completely homemade explosives. Here's the big brain plan. We take the gunpowder, pack it tight and wrap the outside in lead balls. The second it goes boom, those lead balls are gonna fly out in every direction, acting like the world's angriest piñata.
Boom, instant shrapnel grenade.
Plus, lead is so soft that you can literally dent it with your fingernail, which means even my crew of absolute rookies can easily mold it into perfect pellets. No fancy machinery needed, just pure fingers and desperation. Now, the seed's barrier covers a massive 300-meter circle. That is way too much ground for just 100 people to defend. I mean, that's like asking a single security guard to lock down an entire mall. So, I'm shrinking our perimeter down to a tight 20-meter radius. Right around the seed. Compact, locked down, and actually defensible. Step 1. Erect massive wooden walls several meters high. They won't look pretty, but they'll get the job done. Step 2. Dig a massive trench right outside the walls, 3 meters wide and 4 meters deep. Any black beast that tries to blitz us is gonna go straight into a giant hole. And if there's any time left over, I'll throw in some nasty spike barriers too, just to make our welcome mat extra lethal. We have exactly 7 days to build all of this. Yep, no pressure at all. Meanwhile, let me tell you about one of my new recruits, Durrani. This poor guy was sitting at lunch, staring at his stale black bread and watery radish soup, like it was a Michelin star feast. And honestly, for him it kind of was. See, his little sister passed away, strictly because their family couldn't afford basic food. It's heartbreaking. She got sick with something. Completely standard, just a regular old cold. But she was so severely starved that it ended up killing her. Just a single bowl of radish soup a day could have saved her life. So, how did Durrani even end up in Sin Square in the first place? Simple, he absolutely decked a nobleman. One single punch. And for a commoner laying a hand on a noble. His sentence? A casual 30 years of wall duty. Yep. Never heard of wall duty before? Allow me to break down this lovely system. See, the light domain is ringed by this massive border wall. But even with the tree of light pulling defense, the citizens were still sweating bullets. So, they started stacking bricks around the perimeter. Fast forward 200 years, those walls just keep getting taller. And as the lords expand their turf, the walls keep pushing further out. But building outside the light tree's protective shield? That means working right on the edge of Black Beast territory. Even with heavily armed military guards, builders get absolutely shredded. Monsters will smash through, snatch up a few workers, and vanish into the dark. Absolutely nobody signs up for this gig. Nobody. So the light domain came up with a total genius fix. Commit a crime? Straight to the wall. Stole a loaf of bread? Wall duty. Got into a chaotic bar fight? Wall duty. Looked at a smug noble wrong? Believe it or not, straight to the wall. Get this, the absolute longest anyone has survived out there is a mere 5 years. And Durrani just got slapped with 30. That's not a punishment, that's a straight-up death sentence. Wearing a fake mustache. So when I rolled up flashing my fancy lord token, Durrani probably thought, hey, following this guy has got to be better than certain doom. At the wall, right? Wrong. Because then he found out exactly where my territory is.
Zonage.
As in, a brutal 3,500 miles away from the light domain. See, the zones go alphabetically by distance. Zone A is the cozy, safe inner circle, B is a bit further, and so on. Meanwhile, I'm in Zone H. 8 letters deep into your completely screwed territory. Now, the Zone A lords get constant supply drops, reinforcements from other houses, and full military backing. It's basically a safety net woven from pillows and good vibes. The closer you stay, the more hand-holding you get. Veteran lords even help the rookies find their footing. It's like a nice, wholesome little neighborhood. But Zone H? Nada. No se place, zero backup. And absolutely no neighbors. Just me, my 100 convicts, and roughly 10 million nightmare monsters that want to eat us alive. Oh, and here is the absolute cherry on top. As a brand new lord, I only get one single round-trip teleportation token. Just one. And I already burned it just to grab my crew. The territory seed came with it built in, and now it's completely fried. Yeah, no more Uber rides for us. No running back to civilization for backup. We are officially stranded. Durrani was just sitting there, aggressively chewing his bread, probably thinking, man, I should have just taken my chances at the wall. I mean, at least the wall is a slow 5-year death sentence. This psycho is out here speedrunning it. Hey, sorry Durrani, but look on the bright side. The bread is free, the soup is actually warm. And hey, if we bite the dust, at least we won't have to dig any more of these damn trenches. So, quick update on my master escape plan. There is no escape plan. Once the seed leaves the safety of the light domain, there is absolutely no going back. And if I just abandon it to play hide-and-seek in the light domain, I'm a dead man. Because the second those black beasts devour my completely unprotected seed, my life bar instantly drops to 0-2. The seed and I are basically in a toxic marriage now. Till death do us part. Except death is a 6-legged monstrosity with severe anger issues. Oh, and did I mention it can teleport? I already burned my one free pass just to grab these recruits. Want another teleport? Grow a light tree first. Want a permanent teleport station? Get that tree all the way to level 3. That is literally like telling a drowning guy he can have a life jacket right after he swims back to shore. No lord has ever survived in the C-zone. Not a single one in 150 years. And me? I'm in the H-zone. That's 5 levels past completely impossible. Durrani perfectly captured the entire squad's vibe. As he aggressively chewed his bread. Should have just gone to that stupid wall. And honestly, I can't even blame him. But the catch is, they couldn't leave even if they wanted to. Once you're drafted by a lord, your soul is hardbound to the territory. If I go down, they go down with me. We're all chained to the exact same sinking ship. And unfortunately, I'm the idiot who built it. Poor Durrani didn't even trust the weapons I handed them. He just kept staring down at his hand cannon. Like I just handed him an empty toilet paper roll and told him, go box a grizzly bear. In his mind, a hollow iron tube was completely and utterly useless. He would have preferred a regular sword. At least a sword looks like it can actually deal some damage. Meanwhile, I kept running him through the exact same exhausting loading drill on repeat. Pour the powder, drop the ball, and take aim. Then just wait for your partner to spark the fuse. 2 grueling hours of this everyday training. And then it was right back to digging massive trenches and fortifying walls. Honestly, he thought I completely lost my mind. And hey, fair play. But 7 whole days evaporated like absolute seconds. And let me break down exactly what we managed to build with pure blood. Non-stop sweat and endless complaining. We threw up a massive 3-meter wooden wall enclosing the seed, plus a brutal trench, 3.5 meters wide and a terrifying 6 meters deep. guarding the outer perimeter alongside heavy fencing. We lined it with lethal spike barriers, and practically every dirty, makeshift obstacle we could possibly engineer. On top of that, we had 150 hand cannons fully loaded and locked, plus my absolute masterpiece, 100 homemade shrapnel bombs. Each bad boy was packed with 2.5 kilos of explosive powder, and stuffed with 5 whole kilos of lead balls. It wasn't a pretty sight, but it was a serious defensive setup. Then high noon struck, and the seed's protective glow started bleeding out, looking exactly like a smartphone hanging on 1% battery. Everyone watched the light fade, knowing the absolute hell that was coming next. And then boom, nothingness. The light completely died. Instantly, the darkness began to hiss. It was a terrifying, chaotic chorus. An eerie echo. That chilling, unforgettable sound. The black beasts were communicating in the shadows, basically screeching, "Yo, the buffet is officially open," in their horrific monster dialect. See, the protection hadn't just physically blocked them this entire time. It had completely erased our scent and existence from their senses. But the very second it dropped, every single beast for miles knew exactly where to hunt. I peered out over the barricade as they flooded in, and against all odds, I actually let out a massive sigh of relief. They were only level 1s, just basic level 1s. Let me paint a picture of these absolute sweethearts for you. Imagine a husky, but mutate it to have 6 agile legs, a massive jaw that swallows up a third of its face, and rows of razor-sharp teeth, plus twin tentacles sprouting from its spine, and dual bone spikes jutting out of its shoulders. We're talking sharp enough to effortlessly pierce heavy armor. That is your standard level 1 black beast. Literally the bottom of the food chain, but they can sprint at a blistering 6 meters per second for 30 minutes straight. No fatigue, no dropping pace, no sopping. Just pure, unadulterated, 6-legged nightmare fuel. Charging full speed straight at your throat. And those tentacles on their backs are hyper-flexible and ridiculously durable. Even with a legendary razor-sharp sword, an ordinary dude could barely scratch one of these things. Hell, the high-tier beasts can literally snatch arrows right out of mid-air. Luckily, level 1s can't do that. Small victories, right? But they're still absolute nightmares. The real killer is those massive shoulder spikes. They're sharper than any weapon humans can forge. Light armor? Shredded like tissue paper. You'd need heavy plate armor just to survive a hit. But that gear weighs a ridiculous amount. Most regular people can barely even walk in heavy plate, let alone fight for their lives. Now picture this. Hundreds of these monsters charging at 100 criminals, who are hiding behind a flimsy wooden fence with metal tubes. They barely even know how to fire. And level 2s are human-sized, by the way. Oh, and the levels go all the way up to 8. Yeah, I'm choosing not to existential dread right now. Suddenly, the hissing amplified, and the entire ground began to shake. My 100 convict recruits gripped their hand cannons, with trembling hands, staring right at me, like I was supposed to drop some epic motivational speech. Spoiler alert, I had absolutely nothing prepared. What I did have was 150 loaded guns, 100 homemade bombs, a massive trench, and the desperate hope that good old-fashioned gunpowder works on alien monsters, the exact same way it works on everything else. Time to see if Earth science can beat fantasy. Nightmares. It was the ultimate moment of truth. Over 150 black beasts came screaming toward us, like rabid dogs that just heard a dinner bell. Hold! Hold your ground! I screamed at my terrified recruits. Half of them looked ready to straight up pass out. The barricades we spent 7 grueling days building. The fences, the spike barriers, all of it didn't even slow those bastards down. They just used their 6 legs and writhing tentacles to vault over everything like it was a damn playground. But honestly, that was actually the plan. I never expected the walls to stop them. I just needed to shatter their charging formation. See, these level 1 beasts are so incredibly dumb that, once they lose their pack structure, they don't even bother to stop and regroup. They just blindly keep rushing forward. Except now they're in messy, scattered clusters, instead of one giant, unstoppable wave of death. And beautifully enough, it worked. Instead of 150 monsters bum-rushing us all at once, they trickled in like a disorganized mess. Absolute beautiful chaos. And then they hit the trench. A massive 11-foot drop. And these brainless beasts didn't even hesitate. They just yeeted themselves right into it. Zero thoughts. Zero strategy. Just pure sea-hole, jump-in-hole energy. Climbing back out bought us a solid 15 seconds. 15 absolutely crucial seconds. The second the first beast poked its ugly face over the edge of the pit, we let loose. Boom! 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 4 squads opened fire simultaneously. Now here's the deal with hand cannons. Their accuracy is total garbage. But when the target is less than 20 meters away, heck, 10 meters in some spots, aiming isn't even an issue. You'd literally have to try to miss. These bad boys pack a 20-millimeter bore, stretching 15 inches down the barrel, slinging heavy lead balls at over 1,000 miles per hour. To put that in perspective, a high-tier military crossbow maxes out way below that. We're talking 4 times the velocity. Physics doesn't care about fantasy magic in this world. A hypersonic chunk of lead is gonna do heavy damage no matter what. The lead monster ate 2 rounds point blank. The soft lead flattened instantly upon contact, dumping all that raw kinetic energy into its flesh. It didn't just drop dead, it got blasted backward, like it just got T-boned by a semi-truck. And Durrani, this guy, spent the entire week whining about his supposedly useless, hollow iron pipe. Now he's standing there, jaw on the floor, staring at the shredded beast, like he'd just witnessed a literal miracle. The dude who thought I handed him a metal stick, just one-shot a monster that his neighbor, an elite trained warrior, had barely survived fighting before. Stop slacking and swap your barrels. I roared because of course they completely froze. They pulled the trigger once, saw the results, and just short-circuited like their brains crashed. Full-on blue screen of death. And that is exactly why. See, most lords love to summon elite soldiers. Straight out of the soul seeds. Those guys come pre-installed with elite combat instincts. But my squad? I literally have to micromanage and scream. Every single instruction. Honestly, if I wasn't barking orders right here, these guys would have probably fired 1 shot. And just stood there admiring their handiwork. Until a beast ripped their faces off. But after some very passionate, aggressive motivation, they finally swapped out the overheated barrels. And locked into a continuous firing rotation. Just like we ran in boot camp, 40 teams, absolutely shredding every single monster that dared to peek out of that ditch. Pop goes the weasel. Meanwhile, I'm scanning the chaos, just waiting, counting, biding my time. And then I saw it. The entire trench was completely bottlenecked with beasts. Oh yeah, this was the exact moment I was waiting for. Light 'em up. Drop the bombs. My 10-man demolition squad, 5 throwers and 5 lighters working in perfect sync, stepped right up. I had handpicked the absolute biggest, most jacked guys out of my 100-man unit for this, mostly because each bomb weighed a staggering 16 pounds. Yeah, that's not something you just casually hurl like a baseball. Fuses sparked, 5 massive arms wound back, and 5 absolute units of destruction sailed through the air, landing dead center in the monster pile. Now, here's a brilliant little design detail I'm incredibly proud of. I engineered this trench to be perfectly square-shaped, around the circular perimeter wall. Why? Because explosions inside a straight-line trench will channel 100% of that raw blast force down the corridor. The shrapnel bounces, ricochets, and multiplies, instantly turning the entire ditch into a literal meat blender. A round trench would just let the kinetic energy curve away, but a square layout locks every bit of that heat inside. 7 agonizing days of digging. 7 days of everyone calling me a lunatic. 7 days of Durrani complaining about wall duty. It all led to this masterpiece. 5 homemade fragmentation bombs, each packed with over 5 pounds of black powder, and 11 pounds of lethal lead shrapnel, dropping right onto a horde of monsters, packed together like absolute sardines in a tin can. Class is officially in session, boys, and today's lesson is on maximum fragmentation. Let me tell you, it was the most beautiful, absolute loudest sound I've ever heard in my entire life. Boom, 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 boom. 4 out of my 5 bombs detonated perfectly. 1 was a complete dud. We'll talk about quality control later. But honestly, 4 was more than enough to do the job. Remember my absolute genius square trench setup? Well, it worked like an absolute charm. The shockwaves ripped straight down those narrow trenches, like supersonic bowling balls down a gutter. Hundreds of lead pellets transformed into a horizontal storm of shredded metal, bouncing violently off the walls. With shrapnel ricocheting everywhere, that trench became a straight-up blender. And those shadow beasts? Yeah, they were the smoothie. Now, let me put this insane firepower into perspective. For all my fellow math nerds watching, the gunpowder I harvested isn't your standard, low-tier, garbage-grade black powder. The saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal are all ultra-high purity chemical grade. In fact, each bomb's explosive payload packs about 1/5 the punch of pure TNT. So my 2.5 kilos of homemade gunpowder? That basically equals a solid half kilo of TNT. For reference, an actual World War II 75mm artillery shell only carried about 450 grams of explosive filler. That means my DIY bombs are hitting just like heavy artillery rounds from a world war. And in a tight trench that's only 30 meters long, the blast radius stretches 15 meters in both directions. From the center, that literally covers the entire trench. There's nowhere to run, and absolutely nowhere to hide. Just straight up, wall-to-wall devastation. Nearly 100 beasts had jumped headfirst into that trench, but after the smoke cleared, literally 0 were left standing. The handful of survivors were missing limbs, bleeding out from everywhere, and reduced to twitching meat. Going from 100 to 0 in under 3 seconds flat. That's not a battle, that's just straight-up pest control. Oh, and here's the best part. The remaining few dozen beasts who hadn't leaped into the meat grinder yet. They watched exactly what happened to their squad. And for the first time in their miserable, worthless little lives, they felt a brand new emotion. Absolute terror. Turns out, these things aren't just mindless killing machines. They actually do have survival instincts. They've just never had to use them before. Because nothing has ever terrified them like this. Magic? These monsters have seen that basic stuff before. Swords? Old news. But fiery explosions and lethal shrapnel? The absolute concentrated fury of chemistry. Packed tightly into a primitive leather bag? Yeah, that definitely wasn't in their database. Their tiny little beast brains basically just went, Error 404, threat not recognized. Highly recommend running away right now. They hissed frantically at each other for a few seconds. Probably the monster equivalent of, what the heck was that? And then they bolted, just instantly spun around and ran. Meanwhile, my own people were just standing there in stunned silence. See, nobody had actually warned them about the explosions either. I completely skipped the live demo during training. Just to hoard our precious gunpowder, so they'd just been practicing their throwing accuracy. Without ever realizing what these weapons actually did. The look on their faces right now was absolutely priceless. It was equal parts pure terror, and a realization that their crazy lord might actually keep them alive. But I had 0 time to celebrate. Absolutely 0. Get down there and harvest those crystals right now. Because here is the brutal reality. Those beasts that fled? They are not gone for good. They're going to come back with backup. And most likely much bigger, meaner backup. Remember, we are deep in the H-zone. This entire territory has never been explored before. There could be level 3, level 4, even level 5 or 6 elite monsters lurking out there. My little improvised artillery show might have just put a massive neon sign right over our heads, screaming, delicious, interesting prey lives here. Plus, my gunpowder stash is strictly finite. 1,000 pounds sounds like a massive stockpile, until you do the math and realize. Every single bomb burns through 7.5 kilos. I've only got maybe 95 bombs left, tops. That is not going to keep us safe forever, against an endless, overwhelming ocean of monsters. So, our only viable path to survival is securing 10 crystals, feeding them directly to the divine seed, and sprouting a fully functional light tree, before the next massive horde crashes down on us. A light tree means permanent sanctuary and protection. No tree? Then we're just delaying the inevitable. Instantly, everyone scrambled down into the trench with their knives, frenziedly carving open the fallen beasts' heads. Because those vital crystals rest right in the center of their skulls. Finding them was a breeze, and harvesting was easy enough. It was just straight up nasty. But then came the final tally. 11 crystals. Out of roughly 100 dead monsters, only 11 actually dropped one. The standard drop rate is supposed to be around 10%. So I basically hit the statistical average. With a tiny bit of extra luck. Honestly, it could have been worse. Way worse. Some incredibly unlucky lords wipe out 100 beasts and get absolutely nothing. 0 zilch. That's just the brutal reality of RNG. Some people are blessed by the gods, others are cursed. And that rule applies no matter what universe you're in. Gacha mechanics are universal constants, apparently. But hey, I walked away with 11, one more than the bare minimum I needed. Clutching those 11 glowing shards in my hand, I exhaled the biggest sigh of relief in my entire life. Well, across both of my lives, to be exact. Now, the mission was simple, feed them to the seed. Before the next wave crashes down. No big deal, right? Just casually trying to cultivate a mythical tree. While surrounded by an endless horde of alien murder mutts. Right in the dead center of the continent's deadliest zone. A place where literally no other lord has ever survived. Just your typical Tuesday. I scooped up my 11 crystals, bolted over to the seed, and slammed 10 of them down right underneath it. It felt exactly like feeding a parking meter. Right before the traffic cop spots you. Instantly, the seed deployed 10 glowing tendrils of light, latching onto each individual crystal. The brilliant white threads fused with the dark shards, siphoning the corruption away, while the crystals themselves drained from pitch black to completely clear. It looked like the seed was chugging their energy through a bunch of neon glowing straws. After 30 seconds of intense magical juice vamping, all 10 crystals were left totally transparent and hollowed out. Then, the seed began to radiate blinding light and started to evolve. And oh man, did it put on a show. It slammed massive roots deep into the dirt, shot straight up toward the sky, and in about 3 minutes flat, it transformed from a tiny, floating orb of light into a massive 5-meter-tall tree of pure radiance. An absolute, real-deal honest-to-God tree, beaming like a literal lighthouse of epic energy. The shockwave of light surged outward, expanding my safe zone from 300 meters to a whopping 500 meters. It nearly doubled my territory. That's roughly 0.785 square kilometers. That's about 11 acres of pure, absolute can't touch this for those shadow beasts. As for that extra 11th crystal I was flexing, the moment the shockwave hit, it literally went poof. Just dissolved into a wisp of black smoke. Completely wiped. Yep. Turns out this light tree has a seriously toxic design quirk. It craves beast crystals to grow, but the second it blooms, its aura incinerates them instantly. Meaning you can't hoard them, you can't pre-level, and smuggling crystals from the light domain is a no-go. They'd literally vaporize the absolute second they cross into the light tree's safe zone. Honestly, it's like the universe engineered this entire system just to be a massive pain in the ass. Oh, but wait, it gets even better. If you ever want to upgrade your tree down the line, you have to drop your defenses completely, just to feed it new crystals. And you want to guess what happens when you lower your shields? In the middle of monster territory, the beasts swarm you. We're talking massive hordes. Countless veteran lords have been completely annihilated trying to upgrade. It's like, congrats on surviving year 1. Now shut down your shields and pray to God. Fantastic system. Truly beautiful. 10 out of 10, no notes. Meanwhile, Durrani and the rest of my squad dropped straight to their knees. The exact millisecond the tree materialized, they went full zealot mode, chanting, "The holy light shines eternal. The holy light endures forever." Like, actual tears streaming down their faces. 2 centuries of absolute religious devotion to this light tree runs incredibly deep in their DNA. So I just let them have their moment. Hey, they earned it. But here's where the real meta strategy kicks in. I took a strategic look across my domain and realized something wild. My spawn location is actually God tier. To the west, there's a colossal mountain range, the Cadia Mountains, acting as a massive natural barrier that cuts off the West Sori Highlands from the Triasco Plains. My base is nestled right on the eastern slope, perched perfectly on the southwestern edge of the Triasco Plains. The glacial melt from the peaks flows right down into my territory, giving me an endless supply of fresh water. Plus, the ocean winds sweeping in from the south carry heavy moisture that gets trapped perfectly by the mountains. So, this spot gets an absolute ton of rain. Mix that snowmelt with heavy rainfall and boom, god-tier farming conditions. Historically, the Triasco Plains were literally one of the most massive breadbaskets on the entire continent. And over in the light domain, where there are over 2 billion mouths to feed, food is literally worth way more than actual gold. Grain is the ultimate currency out here. And right now, I'm sitting on prime real estate that absolutely nobody else has claimed. Why? Because it's smack in the middle of Death Zone H, where literally no lord has ever survived. It's like discovering the most elite restaurant on Earth, except it's sitting inside an active volcano. But here's the massive silver lining of being abandoned in the middle of nowhere. Total, absolute freedom. Think about it. The lords in zones A and B, sure, they get backed by the massive light domains. They get heavy-hitting power players, tons of supplies, and elite soldier support. Sounds like a sweet deal, right? Wrong. Those powerhouse factions aren't helping out of goodwill. They're doing it because they want to completely own you. The second you accept their handout, congratulations. You just became a puppet lord. A glorified pet with a plot of land. They feed you, which means they control you. It's like the brutal old saying goes, whoever fills your food bowl holds your leash. For over 150 years, these massive factions have completely rigged and monopolized the system. They've got their elite, veteran core lords locked in, and every rookie lord who blindly takes their help basically signs up to be a glorified servant, slaving away just to feed those top-tier core lords. It's a literal pyramid scheme wearing a crown. But as for me, nobody helped me and nobody owns me. My territory answers to exactly one person, and it's the handsome genius standing right here. Sure, going completely rogue and independent means I had to tank and survive the brutal initial stage entirely solo. And honestly, the success rate for doing that is a measly 1 in 10. But guess what? I already made it through. I'm the outlier. That legendary 10%. The absolute madman who brought a DIY bomb to a monster fight. And actually won. Now, I've got endless fresh water, insanely fertile land, total independence, and a massive 5-meter tree that basically screams, no beasts allowed. Now, all I have to do is figure out how to transform 11 acres of monster-infested wasteland into a paradise. Into a fully functioning empire. Piece of cake, right? But get this, the tree had barely finished sprouting. And I was already back on my shopping grind. I sprinted over, slapped my hand against the trunk, and pulled up the upgraded catalog. And oh boy. Oh yes. Level 1 unlocked. Matchlock muskets. We're talking actual firearms now. Well, the absolute ancestors of modern rifles, anyway. Suddenly, my trusty hand cannons were total boomer tech. Let me break it down for you. These matchlock muskets are a massive, god-tier upgrade. See, the old hand cannon requires a 2-man crew. One guy to aim and another to light the fuse. It's like trying to drive a car, where you're holding the steering wheel, while your buddy operates the pedals. But with the matchlock, one person handles the entire show. They designed this genius. Little metal lever that holds a slow-burning match cord. You pull the trigger, the mechanism drops, ignites the flash pan, and bam! A solo operated weapon. Simple, elegant, revolutionary. This meant my squad of 100 men went from 50 firing teams to 100 independent shooters. That is an instant 2x multiplier to our firepower. Just like that. Plus, the barrel length is absolutely insane. Around a full meter long compared to the hand cannon's stubby 38 centimeters. A longer barrel means way higher velocity, insane range, and devastating stopping power. We're talking over 100 meters of effective range. My old hand cannons couldn't hit the broadside of a barn past 20 meters. That's literally 5 times the distance. And you can actually line up a proper sight line, since you can brace the stock right against your shoulder. Before this, using the hand cannons was basically like pointing a metal tube in the enemy's general direction and praying to the RNG gods. I was practically drooling at the potential. But then, reality swiftly checked me into a wall. The light tree had drained every single drop of its energy just to grow. Those 10 crystals? Completely wiped out. Maxed out. The tank was bone dry, which meant my gorgeous, brand new weapon armory was basically a high-end menu that I was too broke to order from. Look at all these legendary weapons you can't touch. You want the OP gear? You need that energy grind. I need energy. I need crystals. Gotta get those crystals, which means hunting beasts. Time to slaughter some monsters. But that means stepping outside the tree's barrier. And to leave, I literally have to drop the shields. Turn off the protection entirely. Let me repeat that for the people in the back. To actually upgrade my tree, I have to disable the one thing keeping us alive. March straight into monster territory with trash tier. Hand cannons, drop enough beasts, loot the crystals, haul them back, and finally feed them to the tree. Why? Because these crystals straight up evaporate the moment they enter a safe zone. It is the most brutal catch-22 in the entire history of game design. The tree literally runs on beast crystals, but the tree's aura also disintegrates them. So every single power-up is a certified suicide mission. And this isn't just a me problem. This is what wipes out veteran lords too. Your tree could be level 5, level 6, doesn't even matter. Every time you need an upgrade or a quick refuel, you have to drop shields and pray. Countless high-tier territories have been completely erased. During feeding time, it's like owning a car that only takes gas, while the engine is completely dead. and you're parked in an active war zone. Now, my hand cannons proved. They can shred level 1 beasts, sure, but their fire rate is absolutely abysmal. Against a massive horde. In the open field without any trenches or walls. I'd get totally overrun in minutes. I desperately need those matchlocks. But I can't craft matchlocks without crystals, and I can't farm crystals without better weapons. So there I was, staring at my beautiful new tree, having a massive existential crisis over supply chain logistics when suddenly the system pinged me, like a direct message popped up. Turns out, every single Lord's light tree connects directly to the mother tree, back in the light domain. So the exact second my seed sprouted into a real tree, the mother tree system went ding. New territory established. And that ping broadcasted to pretty much, and I mean literally everyone. See, in the light domain, a fresh lord locking down a brand new territory is straight up blood in the water for sharks. Every massive faction, every powerhouse player, and every old money syndicate out there, they all want a piece of the new kids on the block. Fresh land means untapped resources, and untapped resources mean insane profits. So somewhere out there in the light domain, some incredibly powerful big shots just got a massive system alert pinging. New territory established. Location, the H-zone. And now every single one of them is desperate to get a meeting with me. Whether that's a massive blessing or absolutely terrifying. Honestly, I haven't even decided yet. But while I was sitting there, having a total existential crisis over weapons, my world tree suddenly dropped a notification. The Holy Court of Light, which is basically the supreme government of this whole domain, was officially inviting all rookie lords who managed to clear their territories to attend their exclusive annual summit. Did I actually want to go? Are you kidding me? I started throwing my gear into bags immediately. Look, it's not like I suddenly love politics. I absolutely despise meetings, but here's the catch. The light domain literally hands every recognized lord who builds a base a staggering yearly stipend of 1,000 gold coins. 1,000. Let me break down just how insane that wealth is. A single gold coin is worth 10 silver. 1 silver coin trades for 100 copper. And just 1 copper buys a massive 2-pound loaf of black bread, which can feed a grown adult for an entire day. Do the math. 1 gold coin feeds 2,000 people for a day. So 1,000 gold coins? That is a mind-blowing mountain of bread. We are talking about the purchasing power of a massive industrial bakery monopoly. When I first spawned in as a lord, they only gave me a measly 100 gold coins as startup cash. 50 of that went straight to recruiting my first 100 citizens from Sin Square, and the remaining 50 barely covered basic rations and tools. That was it. That was my entire shoestring budget. So jumping from 100 coins to a guaranteed 1,000 every year, that's like moving away from pocket change and straight into a CEO's salary. But right now I have a much more pressing problem. Food. My territory actually has top-tier farmland. The soil is perfect, packed with snowmelt, and natural irrigation from the mountains. Plus, the mountain range traps all that rich ocean moisture. Honestly, this place could grow enough wheat to make an industrial pasta factory jealous. But farming requires serious time. It's not like you can plant seeds today and eat fresh bread tomorrow. Wheat takes at least a solid 100 days to mature, and my current food supply is lasting less than 2 weeks. 2 weeks after that, we're all completely starving. Imagine surviving a brutal black beast attack, just to bite dust, because we couldn't whip up sandwiches fast enough. That would easily be the most embarrassing ending to any lord's story in history. Luckily, there's a massive cheat code. Elf Magus. See, elves specialize heavily in wood magic. It's pretty useless in a real fight, but for agriculture, it is completely broken. An elf mage can cast a single spell on a wheat field and slash the entire growth cycle from 100 days down to 10. That's not just fast-forwarding. That's hitting the absolute skip button on farming. So, why doesn't the light domain just hire 1,000,000 elf mages and instantly solve world hunger? Great question, you guys are sharp. But here is why that backfires. Magic-accelerated crops completely drain and ruin the soil. Just one harvest and the land needs a whole year of rest just to recover its nutrients. Meanwhile, the light domain's actual climate naturally supports 2 or even 3 normal harvests every single year. So using elf magic gives you 1 quick crop, but it costs you 2 full seasonal ones. It's literally like taking out a payday loan. Fast cash right now, but you're ruined in the long run. Besides, the light domain's food crisis isn't even about farming efficiency anyway. It's a population problem, we're talking 20 billion people. Wait, sorry, 2 billion. But logistically, it feels like way more. Break it down, humans make up about 500 million. Totally manageable. But then you have 500 million beast folk. And every single one of those absolute units eats 5 times the amount a normal human does. So that 500 million beast folk basically translates to 2.5 billion extra human mouths to feed. We're already talking a cool 3.5 billion in food costs, just to feed 2 races. But then you look at the giants. Sure, their population is pretty small, but a single giant can easily out-eat dozens, if not hundreds, of regular humans daily. One giant's lunch break alone could literally sustain my entire territory for a whole week. And these guys don't just stop at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They're out here hitting second dinner, midnight snacks, and pre-dawn appetizers. So, even with god-tier farmland that pulls multiple harvest cycles a year, the math is completely broken. When your citizens treat whole fields of grain like movie theater popcorn. And as for my specific territory, shipping food over from the light domain is a total logistical nightmare. It's thousands of miles away, with 0 roads and 0 supply caravans. Your only option?
Pure teleportation.
Magic. But hauling massive supply drops via magic costs an absolute fortune. The heavier the payload, the more mana it burns, and the faster your gold vanishes. Teleporting enough grain to feed 100 people over the long haul would bankrupt me faster than my toxic ex-landlady bankrupted my last shred of dignity. So the game plan is simple. Get to the meeting, secure my bag of 1,000 gold coins, recruit a couple of cracked elf mages, bring him back to turbo-grow our wheat supply, and pray my 2-week food reserve doesn't run dry. Before then, easy, right? All I gotta do is solve a massive famine before the famine completely wipes me out. Luckily, thanks to my tree finally leveling up, I unlocked a return ticket straight to the light domain, and the absolute first thing I did? I sprinted full speed to the Lord Pioneer Bureau to cash in on my 1,000 gold coin reward, looking like a kid running to an ATM on payday. But standing in front of that towering, glistening white citadel instantly triggered some old memories, and definitely not the good kind. See, back when I was first chosen as a Lord candidate, I was actually kind of a big deal. During our grueling training phase, I was consistently ranking at the top of all 100 candidates. And when it came to seed compatibility, basically how flawlessly a Lord syncs with their world tree seed, back then, I was the absolute #1 among all the rookie Lords. See, compatibility is everything in this world, because it literally dictates the kind of army you spawn. Higher stats mean you unlock elite, high-tier troops. Take last year's top dog, he pulled heavy cavalry. We're talking full-blown, armored warhorses. And here is the absolute craziest part. Summoning a horseman costs the exact same energy as a basic foot soldier. The light tree doesn't charge you a single extra penny for the mount. Same exact cost, but 10 times the firepower. It's like rolling up in a luxury sports car when you only paid for a rusty bicycle. So naturally, everyone expected me to be the next big thing. The golden boy, the ultimate prodigy. But then my army rolled out and it was just the technology branch. Cue the laughing track. But that wasn't even the real betrayal. The real knife in the back was my territory assignment. Normally, if you have high compatibility, you're stationed right next to the mother tree. Safe zones, zones A and B, the prime luxury real estate. Only the low-tier losers get banished to the brutal outer rims. That's the golden rule. That's how it's always worked. So tell me, how on earth did the #1 rookie end up in the hellhole of Zone H? At first, I chalked it up to terrible luck. Just the universe giving me the middle finger, as usual. But eventually, I uncovered the ugly truth. Someone had deliberately rigged and manipulated the mother tree's algorithm. See, the Holy Court of Light guards the mother tree, giving them the power to slightly nudge and sway its divine decisions. It's just a tiny, imperceptible tilt to them. But for a defenseless rookie lord, that tiny tilt is the difference between a cozy, cushy Zone A placement and an absolute death sentence. Out in Zone H. But who did it and why? I had no clue. Anyone with the clout to hack the mother tree was operating way above my pay grade. I was a nobody, a literal ghost, just some invisible bottom-tier peasant before all this madness started. I even marched right up to the Pioneer Bureau to file a complaint. They straight up threw me out of the building. You're just a dead man walking, Lord. Why should we waste our breath on a corpse? That was their exact vibe. Well, take a good look at me now, Pioneer Bureau. I am back and I've got a real empire, and a real light tree of my own. And you can't kick me out this time, because I'm a certified lord now. I strutted up those pristine, white stairs with the absolute energy of someone who just got bounced from the club, only to buy the whole building. Now, let me give you a quick breakdown of light domain politics, because trust me, it matters. There are 3 major superpowers here. First up, the 100 Races Alliance. This is basically the internal government. When all the surviving species evacuated into the light domain, 2 centuries ago they formed this coalition, just to stop everyone from slaughtering each other. Think of them as the UN. Except they actually accomplish things once in a while. Their whole job is domestic management, laws, and peacekeeping. Making sure the elves and beast folk don't start a massive cafeteria brawl over resources. Second, the Holy Court of Light, the ultimate religious powerhouse. Before the Black Beast rolled up, they were just a tiny, nobody cult. But then the light tree materialized, and suddenly, they went from a garage band to headlining Coachella. 200 years of that tree shielding humanity turned the Holy Court's faith into the absolute dominant religion. Nearly every species worships the light now, giving the court some serious military muscle. It's not for conquering, though. It's for guarding the mother tree and enforcing. There we speak for God privileges. Even the 100 Races Alliance knows better than to pick a fight with them. Finally, the Lord Pioneer Bureau. Founded 150 years ago by the OG generation of lords, they manage every single piece of lord business. Territory oversight, expansion blueprints, and resource coordination. They don't have a massive presence inside the light domain, but they run the show everywhere outside it. Every single outpost harvesting rare minerals, magic crystals or spatial stones for teleportation. Yeah, all under their jurisdiction. That gives them insane leverage. At the negotiating table, 3 factions, 3 agendas, and somewhere in this massive web, someone with serious connections totally sabotaged my deployment. But today, I'm just here to secure the bag. I strode straight into the Pioneer Bureau's Grand Hall, slid over to the subsidy window, and slapped down my lord token. A green-haired elf girl gave me a polite bow, and immediately whipped out a transparent crystal. Smart move. She knew the vibes. Nobody is casually lugging around 1,000 gold coins. That weight would absolutely wreck you. Instead, they hand over a magic storage crystal, which is basically a medieval debit card. You just take it to any banking house in the light domain to cash out. I snatched that crystal up, like it was the absolute last cookie in the jar. 1,000 gold coins. My ultimate survival budget. This was my ticket to recruiting high-tier elf mages, stockpiling rations, and keeping 100 people from starving to death. Out in the brutal wilderness. Now, I just had to lock in and spend it wisely. I'm totally gonna spend it wisely, right? Funds secured. 1,000 gold in hand. Time to go absolute beast mode on the shopping spree. First stop, the 100 Races Alliance office to hire those elf mages. Now, tracking down elves isn't as easy as you'd think. There are only about 20 million of them in the entire light domain, making up barely 1% of the population. Plus, they're basically the cats of the fantasy world. Stunningly beautiful, completely aloof, and they absolutely refuse to live near anyone else. Elves demand their own exclusive neighborhoods, miles away from humans and beast folk, because apparently, the rest of us are just too noisy and smelly for them. To make matters worse, every elf in the city is already employed, convincing one to quit their comfy job, just to follow some random lord into a death zone? Yeah, good luck with that. They're gorgeous. Male or female, it doesn't even matter. So they never struggle to find elite work. They're essentially the supermodels of this universe. Except they can also blast you with high-tier magic. So instead of knocking on elf doors, like a desperate door-to-door salesman, I went straight through official alliance channels. What's up? I'm a certified lord. Here's my massive bag of cash. Please deploy some tree wizards. Way more efficient. Turns out, being a legitimate lord with actual gold coins makes the painful bureaucracy move
Surprisingly fast.
And just like that, the elf situation was handled. So I started scouting the city, stockpiling survival gear, rations, textiles, and salt, basically all the mundane necessities. My territory was absolutely starving for. Just your average lord pulling a massive grocery run. But then, I stumbled upon something massive. I happened to walk past a dwarven blacksmith shop. This place was huge, reeking of iron and pure ambition. Right then, I caught sight of a rival lord inside, intensely haggling with a dwarf. Naturally, I sneaked in to eavesdrop. Hey, don't judge me. Gathering intel is a high-level leadership skill, okay? I need 500 complete sets of weapons and armor, the lord says. In 3 days. Can you clutch that, blacksmith? The dwarf flexes back. We've got over 1,000 masters here. 3 days is light work. Perfect. Here's a 500 gold coin deposit. Bro, I almost choked. 500 gold just on gear. But hold up. Lords literally pull their gear from the light tree. Why the hell would anyone drop a fortune at a forge when the tree hands it out completely free of charge? The second that lord walked out, I slid over to the dwarf and played completely clueless. Yo, quick question. Why is a lord actually buying weapons here, instead of just spawning them from the light tree? The dwarf looked at me like I was adorably brain-dead. Because, he explained, the light tree drains precious energy for equipment. And someone finally realized that. The raw lethality against those shadow beasts comes entirely from the soldiers, not the steel. A tier 3 warrior obliterates monsters with his own aura, not the blade itself. The sword is just a sharp stick he swings around. Whether it's a divine light tree blade or a forged dwarven sword, the body count is identical. My brain instantly short-circuited. So, these lords buy from us, the dwarf continued, and hoard all that light tree energy to summon massive armies instead of burning it on basic gear. Oh man, this changes the entire meta. Think about what this actually means for me, my tech tree troops. Don't rely on mystical magic or battle aura to fight. Their entire destructive output comes strictly from their firepower. For other lords, the soldier is the ultimate weapon, and the blade is just an accessory. But for me, the weapon is the weapon, while the soldier is just the guy holding it. So if other lords can slash costs by sourcing swords from dwarves, can I pull off the same play? By getting my weapons from somewhere besides the light tree. My hand cannons and matchlocks burn through a ton of light tree energy. But what if I could track down gunpowder ingredients, metal for barrels and lead for bullets, right here in the light domain or my own territory? Then I could dump all my tree energy into recruiting absolute units and upgrading instead of blowing it all on gear. I walked out of that blacksmith shop with my mind racing faster than a six-legged black beast. One random eavesdropping session just straight up doubled my military efficiency. Note to self: spy on people's conversations way more often. It's an absolute cheat code. My brain was on fire. Not literally. That's what the gunpowder is for. But here's my massive realization. For every other lord, the soldier is the weapon. Their warriors shred black beasts with raw magic or battle energy coursing through their veins. The sword is just a shiny stick they wave around, while their personal power does the heavy lifting. So buying dwarf-made swords instead of tree-made swords? Same deadly result but saves energy. But my army? We're the complete opposite. My soldiers are just regular dudes. No magic, no battle energy, nothing. They're basically just delivery systems for gunpowder. The gun does all the actual killing. The guy just points it and lights the fuse. So for me, the weapon is the actual weapon. And gunpowder is our version of magic. Which means, if the gunpowder is what actually deletes black beasts, because it's forged from the light tree, then the firearm itself is just a metal tube. And metal tubes? Dwarves can pump those out all day long. I don't need to waste precious light tree energy on crafting muskets anymore. I only need the tree for the gunpowder and bullets, the lethal ingredients. The gun barrel is just the packaging. It's like realizing you don't need to order the whole pizza from a fancy restaurant. Bro, to run a restaurant, you just need the secret sauce. You can easily whip up the dough at home. So, I marched right up to the dwarf blacksmith and said,
Yo, excúseme, sir.
I'd like to place an order for some custom-made gear. Alright, what's the customer need? It's a bit complicated. Got any paper? They handed me a pen and paper, and I started sketching out a full-on matchlock musket. Now, remember, absolutely nobody in this fantasy world has ever seen a gun before. So, I'm basically showing a medieval craftsman a blueprint of technology from another dimension, just praying he doesn't think I'm completely insane. The dwarf, his name was Oli, stared down at my drawing in absolute bewilderment. I could practically read his mind. Like a metal tube on a stick?
No blade?
No sharp point? No edge? Is this supposed to be a weapon, a farming tool, or just a really terrible club? He looked like a caveman, trying to figure out what a smartphone is, just by staring at the case. But hey, being a professional, he kept his doubts to himself. At the end of the day, cash is cash. Even if the client wants you to forge something, that looks utterly useless. Any specific requirements? He asked, probably wondering if he was getting pranked. Oh yeah, very specific, I replied, channeling my inner high-end factory manager. The barrel has to be forged from top-tier refined iron, flawlessly straight, zero bending, and absolutely no warping inside or out. It needs to weigh under 9 pounds. And most importantly, standardization. Every single barrel must be an exact duplicate. Identical length, identical diameter, identical everything. I was not about to deal with 300 guns that each required a custom-sized bullet. That's not an army. That's a logistical nightmare. See, swords can be different lengths and nobody cares. But with guns, if the barrel is off by even 1 millimeter, your bullet flies completely sideways, or the whole damn thing explodes right in your face. Standardization isn't some luxury here. It's literal survival. Oli nodded. These specs are a piece of cake. Awesome. I need 300 of them. How long will it take? He did some quick mental math. 5 days. I've got 3. 3 days? For 300? That's impossible. Fully functional units. We'd have to pull workers off our other major projects. Hearing that, my heart instantly sank. I have to leave in 3 days, and the clock on my territory's food supply is ticking down. Like a straight-up time bomb. I can't just sit around twiddling my thumbs, waiting for these dwarves to finally finish their homework. But seeing the sheer panic on my face, Holly threw me a lifeline. Listen, I do have a backup plan. The absolute hardest part to forge is the metal barrel. We can easily crank out 300 of those bad boys in 3 days. As for the wooden stock, the firing mechanism, and the final assembly, your people can easily handle that on your end. And look, since we're doing less heavy lifting, I'll even hook you up with a discount. I muddled it over for exactly half a second. Sure, my people back at the base might not know how to fight a war, but they can absolutely slap a metal tube onto a block of wood. That's not rocket science, it's basically arts and crafts. Deal. And just like that, 300 precision-forged gun barrels were locked in. Meanwhile, Ali is probably going to spend the rest of the night staring blankly at my blueprint, losing his mind trying to figure out why anyone would want 300 identical hollow iron pipes. Don't sweat it, Ali. You're going to find out soon enough. In fact, the entire continent will. After securing the weapon parts, I went on the most stressful, high-stakes shopping spree of my life. We're talking food, textiles, and salt, tons and tons of salt. Mainly because my territory is completely incapable of producing its own. Fortunately, the light domain is situated right by the ocean, meaning salt is dirt cheap. Hey, I'll take the small wins. But when I checked my balance afterward, I literally wanted to cry. Half of my precious 1,000 gold coins were just gone, evaporated into thin air faster than a shadow beast's crystal melting in direct sunlight. So here is the survival budget. 300 gold coins go toward heavy recruitment. I need actual capable, able-bodied young workers this time. Not the random convicts I guilt-tripped into joining me in round 1. A mere 100 people cannot defend a border, farm the land, and build a city. I need warm bodies and fast. Whatever scraps are left will go toward paying off the elf mages, and hopefully hiring some dwarf blacksmiths to manage repairs and forge proper farming tools. But spoiler alert, it's not enough. It is never enough. I am basically running the world's most underfunded medieval startup. My master business plan? Literally just please don't die. And my financial strategy? Pure, unadulterated hope. So, I pulled the ultimate broke entrepreneur move, hunting for rich investors. As night fell, I pulled up to the annual Lord's Gala at Orozco Castle. Bro, this place is absolutely massive. Over 100,000 square meters. It's basically a whole-ass city disguised as a building. Constructed by one of the 5 legendary founding lords, who established the Pioneer Bureau a century and a half ago. Talk about a flex. The scene outside was pure chaos. High-tier nobles flexing their luxury carriages, corny officials trying to look important, and then the absolute main characters, the veteran lords rolling up like absolute bosses. On paper, this event is a massive celebration. for the rookies getting their official licensing. But in reality, it's a fantasy world corporate networking convention, mixed with a high-stakes episode of Shark Tank. See, lords usually spend all their time totally isolated, grinding against monsters in their own territories. They almost never get to link up. So, this annual party is their one shot to cut mega deals, barter rare resources, forge alliances, and, most importantly for the heavyweight veterans, scout out vulnerable rookies to manipulate into minions. Here's how the power dynamics actually play out. These veteran lords discover insane mine sites and rich resources while expanding their borders, but they lack the manpower to defend it all. Their solution: recruit rookie lords and deploy them straight to these dangerous high-value hot zones. Yup, low-tier lords can actually teleport their entire territories, but only if they bend the knee to a senior lord, who basically uses them as a glorified, living meat shield for their mining operations. It's literally just a corporate franchise model. Congrats on your brand new territory, kid. Now, enjoy working for me. And trust me, it's not just veteran lords hunting for underlings. Every major superpower faction in the light domain wants a piece of these fresh rookies too. Why? Because official lords are incredibly rare, only 100 candidates a year. And out of those, barely a dozen even survive the vetting process. Worse yet, maybe not even a single one will ever level up to a mid-tier lord. But if you invest in the right prodigy early on, the return on investment is absolutely insane. Just look at the elves. We're talking a mere 20 million elves. Literally just 1% of the population. Do the math, and that means barely one elf per year makes it to lord candidate status. Just one. An actual, fully realized elf lord? You're lucky to see one pop up every few years. So obviously, the elves can't rely solely on their own bloodlines for political leverage. Instead, they play the long game, backing high-potential lords from other races. We're talking elite mage support, massive infrastructure aid, literal mountains of gold, and, well,
Gogaus elf wives. No joke.
Yeah, you heard that right. Some of these races straight-up leverage arranged marriages with the most stunning members of their species, just to lock down ride-or-die alliances with rising lords. It's basically, here's a breathtaking elf princess. Now please protect us forever. Hey, as far as geopolitical strategies go, you can't deny it absolutely works. Every single faction runs some version of this hustle. More lords under your thumb means more power on the board. In the light domain, it's a cutthroat arms race of sponsorship. And then there's me. Completely broke, utterly desperate, and managing a territory in Zone H that the entire world considers an absolute death trap. Yet, here I am, walking into a castle packed with high society billionaires and high-tier lords, fully planning to finesse someone into funding my operation. I'm basically crashing an exclusive billionaire gala, wearing borrowed shoes, just hoping someone accidentally drops their wallet. But hey, I actually hold a few massive trump cards nobody else has. Unclaimed, prime real estate on the Triesco Plains, infinite room for expansion in a totally untouched zone, and insane weapons tech that this world hasn't even dreamed of yet. I just need to convince one venture capitalist to take a massive gamble on the crazy underdog lord with the exploding metal tubes. Time to turn on the charm and pitch like my life depends on it. So, I was standing right outside the Grand Castle, trying to map out how to schmooze my way into some wealthy noble's deep pockets, when the sky suddenly decided to put on an absolute show. First up on the radar, a literal bone dragon. Yeah, you heard me. A massive, terrifying dragon constructed entirely of skeletons, diving straight down through the heavy clouds, like it was death's personal luxury Uber. Riding high on its back was a chilling figure draped in pitch-black robes. Ramrat, the undead holy king himself. This absolute menace is basically the ultimate necromancer lord. His personal army consists entirely of undead mages. And what do undead mages do best? These guys literally weaponize the dead, building a massive skeleton army. We're talking straight-up zombies and ghouls. To them, every single corpse is just another future employee. A single undead mage is basically a one-man army. So a whole squad of undead mages? Yeah, you definitely don't want to get on their bad side. This guy can even reanimate dead black beasts to fight for him. Talk about the ultimate, most broken recycling program ever. Which is why he's considered completely unbeatable among any lords of the exact same tier. Even higher-ranking lords refuse to mess with him, because honestly, how do you beat an opponent whose army literally grows? Every single time you take a casualty, the bone dragon hadn't even finished sticking its landing before. Every single noble and official in the courtyard completely swarmed him, like a pack of hungry pigeons on a breadcrumb. Lord Ramrat, I've got 5,000 fresh corpses ready if you're interested. Bro, someone was straight up pitching him dead bodies. As a legitimate business deal. This economy is wild. Dead bodies are literally a tradable commodity here. My old world had hyped up cryptocurrency, but this world runs on corpse currency. And honestly, both feel pretty damn sketchy. Everyone was desperately kissing up to Ramrat. For one reason, his territory produces space gems. Those are the exact crystals that power every teleportation gate and storage magic item across the entire light domain. Without those space gems, the entire realm's transportation network completely collapses. No quick teleports, no interdimensional shipping, absolutely nothing. Think about it. If one guy controlled the entire oil supply on Earth, you'd be treating him like royalty too. I was just watching this clown show play out when suddenly, a massive, chaotic swarm of bats exploded out of the sky. Hundreds of them spiraled violently into a dense, dark sphere, which slowly compressed and solidified right before our eyes, until it fully morphed into a human silhouette. The bats scattered, and standing right there was... Oh wow. She was... okay, let me try to keep my composure here. She was hands down the most devastatingly gorgeous woman I have ever laid eyes on in either of my 2 lifetimes. Dressed in a striking white and red gown, with a flawless face, and a physique that looked like it was personally sculpted by a god, who was seriously trying to flex. Every single curve was mathematically perfect. This wasn't just the kind of beauty that turns heads. This was the kind that causes multi-car pileups, ignites total warfare, and makes grown men forget their own names. Honestly, my brain completely short-circuited. And yeah, both of my brains, the big one and the little one. Turns out, it's the Blood Queen herself, Gardriella. She's actually here. And guys, I think I'm in love. Love? Bro, you're just down astronomical. Yo, it's Lady Gardriella. Please, let me be your steps tool. The entire crowd went absolutely feral. Now, Gardriella is a vampire, and she's the literal only vampire lord in the entire light domain. Yet against all odds, she ranks in the top 20 of all lords based on raw power. See, vampires are a pretty tiny race numerically. We're talking only about 1 million total, making their population even smaller than the elves. When the light domain was first being established, most of the other races tried their best to gatekeep vampires from joining. Because, well, obvious reasons. Vampires survive strictly on a liquid diet, specifically blood. And their absolute favorites happen to be human and elf blood. So naturally, humans and elves were not exactly thrilled about living next door to monsters that viewed them as a literal Capri Sun. But the vampires forced their way in through pure, unadulterated strength. Every single vampire is born with an innate affinity for dark and blood magic, making them a level 3 mage right out of the womb. Think about it. The absolute weakest vampire is already level 3. By the time they hit adulthood, level 5 is a walk in the park. On top of that, they possess beastfolk tier, physical strength and insane speed. That makes ordinary humans look like they're moving in slow-motion Matrix style. A ton of them can even stack battle aura right on top of their magic, meaning half their population are dual-class magic and melee fighters. Imagine a million walking, talking magical tanks. Eventually, the light domain just had to swallow their pride and say, fine, you guys can stay. Just please don't eat us. Now, Gardriella herself is a living legend. She is the only lord in recorded history who secured her official title without relying on a single light tree troop. During her trial, she soloed over 100 apex black beasts completely on her own. No army, no backup, nothing. Just one vampire queen waking up and choosing absolute violence. Her personal army consists entirely of pure-blood vampires and their kin, meaning every individual unit is an absolute powerhouse. But, because of that whole "we want to drink your fluids" reputation, the other High Lords won't even go near her. She's basically the ultimate ice queen at the party. The kind of absolute stunner everyone hypes up from across the room, but is way too terrified to actually sit next to. Meanwhile, look at me. I'm just a broke boy lord flexing some explosive metal tubes, standing in the exact same courtyard as a literal bone dragon, a high-tier necromancer, and a gorgeous vampire supermodel. I glanced down at my completely empty pockets, then stared right back up at these walking weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, My bank account is definitely not built for this VIP section. But right before the main event kicked off, I got a front row seat to the absolute best reality TV drama this world has ever seen. So, it turns out Gardriella and Ramrat are neighbors, and they absolutely despise each other. Years ago, they stumbled upon the same mine and went full-blown war mode over it. Deploying armies, burning resources, just total chaos. It got so bad the Alliance and the Pioneer Bureau had to step in. Like exhausted, divorced parents, separating two toddlers throwing a tantrum over a toy. They managed to stop the official warfare. But behind the scenes, if Ramrat so much as stubbed his toe, Gardriella would literally throw a massive festival to celebrate. And if Gardriella's entire territory flooded, Ramrat would write a handwritten thank you card to the rain gods. They are living, breathing, fantasy-level haters. Which is exactly why nobody expected both of them to pull up tonight. These two powerhouses are way too high up the food chain to care about a rookie. Lord's welcome party. This would be like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk simultaneously showing up to a random community college job fair. Something incredibly shady was going down. And right on cue, Gardriella walked straight up to Ramrat and completely chose violence. Still hiding underneath that raggedy black cloak after all these years? What's wrong? Still too cowardly to show your face? Did all that dark necromancy finally rot you into something too hideous to look at? Tell me the truth, Ramrat. Can you even still function like a real man? The entire courtyard dropped to a dead, icy silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, right on cue, you could hear 100 nobles simultaneously, sucking air through their teeth at the absolute audacity. See, necromancers have one massive, crippling insecurity. Their forbidden magic slowly but surely mutates their living bodies into something resembling a half-decayed corpse. A ton of them lose basic human functions. And by basic human functions, yeah, she went there. Look, I'm just gonna be real with you. Let's just say his lower half completely shut down. Yeah, his little soldier can no longer stand at attention. And Gardrilla didn't just poke at his biggest insecurity. She literally danced all over it in stilettos, laughing right in his face. Meanwhile, Ramrod just stood there, breathing heavily and screaming on the inside. He knew damn well that if he made a single move, Gardrilla would blitz across that 100-meter gap before he could even summon a single skeleton and absolutely beat him to a pulp. She'd already done it years ago, and he still had the trauma. So he just stood there like a statue, chanting, "Serenity now. Don't lose it. Keep it together." Like a guy whose therapist charges by the minute. Seeing him refuse to take the bait, Gardrilla just pouted, flipped her hair, and scoffed. "Boring. You're still a total coward." Then she struts into the banquet hall, acting like she owns the place. Ramrod's breathing sounded like a literal broken steam engine. As for the rest of us newbie lords, we didn't breathe a word. These two absolute monsters could squash us like bugs. Seriously, getting caught in the crossfire between a necromancer king and a vampire queen? That would easily be the dumbest way to die, even in a world already packed with stupid deaths. More lords kept rolling in after that, but honestly nobody could top that entrance. Eventually the party officially kicked off. And let me tell you, the food. Oh my god. The food was unreal. Fresh white bread with real butter, actual meat, and fresh fruit. I haven't had a meal this good since. Well, actually, I don't think I've ever eaten this well in this entire life. I completely lost my mind, shoveling food down like a starving caveman, who'd been surviving on dry crusts and watered-down radish soup, which I was. Just this single feast must have cost thousands of gold coins. The Pioneer Bureau is absolutely loaded. Once I finally cleared out everything within arm's reach, it was time for the main event, the introduction of the rookie lords. They lined us up on stage one by one. The host hyped up each and every new lord, with incredibly exaggerated introductions. First up, we have a Beastman lord, from the Gorkov clan, commanding a savage wolf cavalry. Their territory in B-Zone just struck gold with a massive iron mine. Honestly, every new lord was getting their hype moment. It was always insane territory, this unstoppable army, that, or boasting about some god-tier strategic location and resources. The crowd just clapped politely after each announcement. But that's when I noticed a pattern. I was dead last on the list. And trust me, this order wasn't random. It was ranked strictly by raw potential, combined with territory quality. But my potential scores during training were literally top tier. and my territory establishment time was one of the fastest on record. By every logical metric, I should have been right at the front of the pack. So why the hell was I last? Finally, the host got to me introducing our final rookie, an underdog of the human race, straight from the slums, boasting godly training scores, and one of the speediest territory setups of the year. Right away, I could see the pure confusion on everyone's faces. Insane scores? Speedrunning his setup? And this crazy impressive background. Absolutely none of this screamed last place material. Everyone in the room was thinking the exact same thing. If this kid is such a prodigy, why is he rotting at the very bottom of the list? They knew something about my territory had to be spectacularly, legendarily, hilariously awful. Which, to be fair, it absolutely was, but they didn't know that yet. I just stood there under the spotlight, flashing a smug smile, thinking, oh, just wait until you find out where I set up camp. And then the host dropped the bomb. His territory is in the H-zone. And just like that, I became the party's ultimate charity case. The entire room reacted. Like I just announced I was highly contagious. You could literally watch all the interest drain from their faces in real time. Every single noble, who had been casually drifting over to network with me, suddenly found something incredibly fascinating. On the complete opposite side of the room, and every veteran lord, who might have taken me under their wing, as a promising junior partner, suddenly decided they needed to go to the bathroom, permanently. The logic was brutal, but it was simple. Investors want a return on investment, and backing a dead-on-arrival H-zone lord is just lighting money on fire. The B-zone is risky, but it's a calculated gamble. But the H-zone? That's just straight-up sketchy. Investing there? Please. That's literally setting your cash on fire and watching it burn. See, when veteran lords recruit a rookie, they have to foot the massive relocation bill, just to pull your territory closer to theirs. Moving a territory between standard zones is like moving to a new neighborhood across town. But moving from the H-zone? That's like trying to ship a whole mansion across the ocean. No one in their right mind is paying that premium for a newbie lord, who's probably going to get wiped out within a month. So there I stood, completely isolated in a room packed with hundreds of elite, ultra-powerful high societies, the ultimate loner at the party. I felt exactly like the last kid picked for dodgeball. Except the dodgeball was my actual life, and absolutely nobody wanted me on their squad. I was honestly just standing there pondering if I could sneakily stuff more buffet food into my pockets. For the long walk home, when the universe threw me a massive curveball, a mysterious crimson mist materialized right in front of my face. And floating right in the middle of it was a ring. A spatial storage ring. A literal pocket dimension artifact. Even the most basic budget tier one on the market costs a whopping 1,000 gold coins. And this premium one just manifested out of thin air, like a flawless magic trick. I looked up, and there she was, Gardelia, the legendary blood queen herself. This drop-dead gorgeous vampire lord was staring directly at me, locking eyes with an expression that I can only describe as purely amused. Like a predator cat toyed with a struggling mouse. Hey kid, there's 3,000 gold coins loaded into that ring. Consider it my personal investment in your future. 3,000. 3,000 gold coins. My brain instantly did a hard factory reset. Lady Gardelia, if I may ask, why exactly are you helping me? Suddenly, every single elite in the ballroom was staring dead at us. The infamous vampire queen, who notoriously keeps to the shadows, who avoids other lords like the plague, and couldn't care less about faction politics, was casually dropping 3,000 heavy gold coins on the most doomed, worst-positioned rookie at the entire gala. It made absolutely zero sense. Then she smirked. And honestly, I wish she hadn't, because my operating system crashed all over again. Don't get it twisted, kid. I'm not doing you a favor. Honestly, your bad luck is pure premium entertainment. Look, 3,000 gold is literally couch change for me. But to someone like you, it's life-changing. I genuinely want to see how long you can last in the H-zone. My life is incredibly boring, and right now, you're the most interesting thing that's crossed my path. It'd be a total shame if my favorite new toy broke too soon. So yeah, she was keeping me on life support, pretty much the exact same way you'd feed a pet hamster for kicks. But you know what? I didn't even care. Pride is a luxury item I absolutely cannot afford right now. Seriously, she could have told me, I'm funding you because a random pigeon told me to, and I still would have snatched that ring and bowed until my spine snapped. Much obliged, Lady Gardrilla. I bent over so low. I could have tied my sneakers without even flexing my knees. 3,000 shiny gold coins, courtesy of a literal vampire who finds my misery hilarious. Hey, cash is cash and I'll take that deal all day long. The very next morning I hit the ground running, ready to blow through my original 500 coins, plus Gardrilla's massive 3,000 gold bonus. Suddenly, your boy actually had a real budget to work with. I marched right back to Sin Square, aka my absolute favorite shopping mall for desperate felons. Why do I keep coming back here, you ask? Simple, because desperate criminals are dirt cheap. These guys were all facing forced wall-building duty, which is basically just a glorified death sentence with a side of cardio. Sure, coming to work for a lord in a monster-infested wasteland. Sounds terrifying on paper until you look at option B. Stacking bricks right next to active monster spawns until you get eaten alive. Which, by the way, statistically happens within 5 years. Guaranteed. So for these convicts, following me to the H-zone wasn't even a downgrade. It was a total lateral move. Same level of danger, way better food, and a legit fighting chance at actually surviving. Honestly, my recruitment pitch practically wrote itself. Hey, do you want to probably die somewhere slightly nicer? Armed with that, I whipped out my wallet and went on an absolute hiring spree. I bought more laborers, more frontline soldiers, and plenty of warm bodies to dig trenches, plow the fields, and point heavily loaded metal tubes at incoming monsters. Gardrilla wanted a good show, right? Oh, I was going to give her a masterpiece. I am going to build an absolute empire in the H-zone. Something so massive that every single noble who ignored me at that party is going to choke right on their fancy high-class caviar. But first things first, back to the shopping spree. The going rate, just 2 gold coins ahead. Are these criminals made of literal diamonds or what? So there I was, back at Sin Square, staring down my supplier like he just tried to sell me a total junker car for the price of a luxury mansion. Last time I only paid half a gold coin per inmate. Half. Now this guy wants 4 times that price for the young, jacked ones. His excuse? Oh, the 100 races. Alliance just dropped a massive new construction project. Apparently they're building internal walls running north to south right through the light domain. Labor shortage means prices skyrocket. But wait, internal walls? The light domain already has massive border walls to keep those terrifying black beasts out. Why on earth would they build more walls inside? That's like putting a security fence inside your own living room. What are they prepping for? An all-out civil war? Or just interior decorating gone horribly wrong? I logged that shady little detail away for later, and opened up my wallet with a sigh. So heavy it probably echoed across the entire continent. Fine. 2 coins a pop. Here is 1,000 gold. Get me 500 of your strongest, youngest men. Bro's eyes immediately lit up like a kid on Christmas. A cool 1,000 gold coins hitting his palm all at once. Just straight up gave him a heart palpitation. He practically tripped over his own feet, promising he'd personally handpick the absolute premium criminals. Just for me. Yeah, sure, buddy. You're basically running a wholesale Costco for convicts. Next stop on the list? The Alliance office to check up on my elf mage recruitment. The good news? Someone actually agreed to sign up and come to my territory. The bad news? 1 elf. Literally just 1, and they aren't even high level. Turns out, absolutely nobody wants to go to H-zone. Shocker, I know. When the job description reads, agricultural magic position. But the location is the single most lethal death trap on the map, where every single previous owner has died a gruesome death. The applications don't exactly come flooding in. The risk-to-reward ratio is, as they so politely put it, highly unfavorable, which is just corporate speak for, you are completely insane, and we value our lives way too much to grow your wheat. Hey, at least 1 is better than 0. So I coughed up the cash and kept it moving. Over the next 48 hours, I went on an absolute unfiltered shopping spree. Those 3,000 coins from Gardrilla were straight up burning a hole in my pocket, and I was dead set on flipping every single cent into top-tier utility before heading out. Rations, high-grade fabrics, essential salts, and most importantly, iron ingots, metric tons of them. Look, I desperately needed raw materials for weapons, maintenance tools, infrastructure, honestly, just about everything. You literally cannot build a civilization without heavy metal. But even after that massive haul, I still had about 1,000 coins left over, and trust me, I had big plans for every last one. On the final day, I went to secure my custom gun barrels from our master dwarf blacksmith. My lord, Your 300 iron tubes are ready. They hauled out a massive chest and cracked it open. 300 gleaming, flawlessly forged gun barrels stood lined up like elite soldiers at attention. I picked one up, inspecting it like a master jeweler, examining a priceless diamond. Absolutely flawless. Laser straight inside and out. Perfect diameter, uniform length. Every single barrel was a carbon copy of the last. These dwarves are literally born for metallurgy. If the gods engineered a species strictly to forge god-tier gear, it's them. Their quality control would make a high-tech modern factory look lazy. I cross-referenced barrel after barrel. Identical length. Identical bore. Identical weight. Standardization? Achieved. My future musket army wasn't gonna have to deal with the nightmare of wrong ammo size. Beautiful. Now for phase 2 of my visit. I have another business proposition for you guys. I want to hire some of your blacksmiths to come set up shop in my territory. The entire forge went dead silent. The dwarves swapped nervous glances. And then came the textbook, polite rejection. My lord, we are just simple, humble craftsmen. Our roots are here, and we really don't like straying far from home. Actual translation. We know your domain is a literal death trap, and we'd honestly rather chew on our own anvils. Fair enough, I got it. A rookie lord's territory is already a massive gamble. But an H-zone wasteland? That's not a job offer, it's a death sentence. That's straight up a suicide mission. No sane person is abandoning their family to forge iron. Right next to a horde of 10 million monsters. But I pack a weapon way more potent than any musket, more utterly devastating than any bomb, and far more persuasive than any speech. Cold, hard cash. How does 10 gold coins a month sound? And anyone who signs up gets 3 months paid up front. That's 30 gold coins stacked in your hand. Right now, 10 gold coins a month is enough to feed hundreds of people. For a dwarf blacksmith, who usually brings home a fraction of that, we're talking life-altering money, the kind of offer that turns. But my family is here into. My family would literally kill me if I didn't go. I watch their faces as they do the math. Risking death in the H-zone versus 30 gold coins. Sitting in their palms today.
Instant danger versus générationnel wealth.
The room goes dead silent. Come on, dwarves. Everyone has a price and I just found yours. The dwarves really tried to say no. They honestly did. But then I dropped the bomb. 10 gold coins a month. 3 months up front. And right on cue I watched their little, bearded faces completely light up. Like Christmas trees tossed into a furnace. Which, honestly, is basically their natural habitat. Look, dwarves are honest, hardworking folks, but they're also realistic. They pull in maybe 1 or 2 gold coins a month here. I'm tossing them 10. That's not just a raise. That's a total lifestyle revolution. Their morals lasted a grand total of 4 seconds. Before pure greed took the wheel. Suddenly, the entire room is begging, pick me, pick me. These dwarves are practically trampling each other. I straight up feel like a rock star at a massive concert, except my raging fans are all 3 feet tall, and smell heavily of scorched metal. I handpicked 20 of them, not because I didn't want more. Trust me, I wanted 100, but 20 dwarves at 30 upfront coins each. Already drains 600 gold. Turns out my wallet has actual limits, even if my ambition absolutely doesn't. While waiting around for them to pack up their gear, I happened to catch some wild rumors spreading on the street. And honestly, things got ugly about a month ago. The Eastern Territories got absolutely slammed by a black tide. Picture your standard monster raid, but multiplied by 1,000. An endless tsunami of beasts so massive that even zones protected by light trees got completely overrun. And here's the kicker. Those light trees need a monthly crystal refuel. During a black tide, the exact second you drop the shields to feed the tree, the horde rushes in and it's game over. 6 full territories were wiped off the map. 6, including a high-tier region belonging to the elves. Talk about devastating. The elves only had 2 high-tier territories to begin with, and now they're down to 1, for a race that barely spits out a single lord candidate per year. Losing half their ultimate power base is a total catastrophe. It gets even crazier. Ramrat and Gardrelia, those 2 legendary bitter rivals, actually had to team up just to stop the bleeding. Those 2 working together? Yeah, the universe must have been glitching that day. But here is the real red flag. A mid-level archmage actually died in the chaos. A human one. Let me put that into perspective for you. Magic users in this world are ranked in 3 major tiers, with 3 levels each: Mage, Magic Knight, and Archmage, all split into low, mid, and high. Reaching that Archmage tier is insanely rare. There are fewer than 50 in the entire light domain. Humans have less than 30 total, and they just lost one of their VIPs. That's like losing a nuclear submarine. You don't just build another one by next Tuesday. Wild stuff, but honestly, not my problem right now. I've got my own territory to keep alive. After waiting around for about an hour, my 20 dwarves were packed up and ready to roll. I led them straight over to the teleportation center, where my 500 freshly purchased convicts were already waiting. 500 young, buff dudes, all looking incredibly nervous and confused. But standing right in the middle of them, impossible to miss.
Was an Elf.
Wait, hold up.
An Elf.
Her name was Stella, from the Star Moon tribe. She was my newly hired mage, and damn, she was absolutely stunning. Bro, even by elf standards, she was an absolute 10. She was packing a bow, a full quiver, and a sleek sword. We're not just talking about some tree hippie wizard here. This was a legit battle-ready elf who could both throw hands and grow crops. Talk about a literal 2-for-1 deal. Stella of the Star Moon tribe greets the Lord, she said, keeping it super formal. Hey, no need for the stiff formalities, I replied, trying my absolute best to act professional and not completely ogle her. Right on cue, the teleportation circle flared to life, and we vanished into a blinding flash of light. Me, 20 dwarves, 500 convicts, 1 drop-dead gorgeous elf spells word, 300 gun barrels, and enough raw supplies to either jumpstart a whole civilization, or host the most ridiculously expensive bonfire in history. Meanwhile, and I wouldn't find out about this until way later, back over in the light domain's capital, things were getting incredibly intense. The Central Council was holding an emergency meeting, and every single heavy hitter was in attendance. We're talking the Pope of the Holy Court, the big bosses of the Alliance, and the 5 Supreme Lords of the Pioneer Bureau. Hundreds of the most powerful elite on the planet were crammed into one room, screaming at each other. The beast folk. Emperor was pointing fingers at humans for the Archmage's death, while the humans blamed the Alliance for deploying him in the first place. It was a total blame game. But the real nightmare scenario wasn't that the Archmage was dead. It was the terrifying possibility that he was still alive, captured by the shadow beasts, because apparently, a living Archmage in enemy hands is a million times worse than a dead one. Something about the eastern defense line now having a massive blind spot, and everything going completely to hell. If those monsters managed to break the mind of an Archmage level magic powerhouse. Just then, Ramrat and Gardrillia burst into the council chambers. Whatever political storm was brewing in that room was way beyond my pay grade, but I had this sinking feeling that the world was about to get a whole lot deadlier, and my little outpost in the H-zone was about to become way more crucial than anyone could have ever guessed. But first, I had 500 clueless criminals to whip into shape, and 300 rifles to piece together. First things first. Meanwhile, deep within the chaotic Central Council, Ramrat and Gardrillo were standing side by side, looking like 2 angry cats forced into the exact same carrier. They were actually on their best behavior and not fighting, mostly because the council chamber packs enough raw firepower to absolutely flatten them both. And trust me, they know it. See, here's a hilarious political detail. These lords are absolute beasts against black monsters, but when matched against the light domain's own high-tier elites, the lords get their butts completely kicked. The internal power dynamic basically boils down to, sure, you're a special little monster hunter, but we can still easily beat you to a pulp. So they sat down, and the Pope handed them a new mission. Investigate the completely obliterated elf territory over in Zone B42, and find out if that human Archmage Patterbose is somehow still breathing. Now, both of them thought this was incredibly sketchy. Like, shouldn't the elves already know exactly what happened to their own turf? But when the literal Pope tells you to jump, you don't ask questions, you just ask how high. They agreed and took off, but whatever that sketchy mission is about, it's way above my pay grade and concern level right now. Why? Because I was finally back home, touching down in my own territory with 521 shiny new recruits. We're talking 400 young men, 100 young women, 20 legendary dwarf blacksmiths, and 1 absolutely gorgeous elf mage named Stella. Just like that, my population skyrocketed from a meager 100 to over 600. Boom. We are officially a real village now. Granted, we're an extremely vulnerable, terribly equipped village surrounded by lethal monsters. But hey, progress is progress. I immediately started assigning roles. 300 of the absolute strongest men were drafted into the military, while the remaining 300 became our core farmers and support crew. Their objective was crystal clear: clear out at least 500 acres of farmland. Within the next 2 months, I had only bought enough rations to keep everyone alive for 60 days, so the clock was officially ticking. Either we successfully harvest our own food by then, or we're right back to starving to death. But first up was my absolute favorite pet project: assembling 300 matchlock muskets from scratch. The dwarf-forged gun barrels and custom firing mechanisms were pure works of art. All I needed now were the wooden stocks and the manpower to put the firearms together. It was easy enough labor for my people. But you know me, I wasn't just going to copy some basic, standard design. Oh, trust me, I completely upgraded it. See, the standard matchlock muskets in this world all use those curved stocks that look super elegant, but are absolutely terrible for actually aiming. So, I completely redesigned the stock to look like a World War I or World War II rifle. Straight and shoulder-braced. Pure practicality, because I know a little secret that literally no one else in this world does. Matchlock accuracy isn't nearly as bad as people think. Let me drop some actual history on you. Back on Earth, during China's Ming Dynasty, General Qi Jiguang literally required his matchlock shooters to snipe a human-sized target from 120 meters away. They needed 3 out of 3 hits just to pass, and 7 out of 10 to be considered elite. Meanwhile, in Europe during that exact same period, they held shooting competitions, where marksmen using smoothbore matchlocks were nailing targets at over 150 meters. Out of 130 shooters firing 24 rounds each, 40 of them bagged 20 hits out of 24. That is a mind-blowing 83% hit rate at 150 meters. And remember, they did this with a smooth bore. Absolutely zero rifling using ancient technology. So the idea that matchlocks are just inaccurate junk is a total myth, spread by people who never actually looked at the real data. The real issues always boiled down to 3 things. First, terrible stocks. If the stock doesn't properly absorb that recoil against your shoulder, every single shot is going to throw off your aim. But my redesigned stocks completely fixed that. Second, zero rear sights. Old-school matchlocks only had a tiny front sight on the tip of the barrel. With no rear sight, you're stuck doing 2-point aiming instead of a proper 3-point alignment. Honestly, that's like trying to draw a perfectly straight line with only one reference point to guide you. To fix this, I had the dwarves forge both front and rear sights onto every single barrel. And third, dirt cheap manufacturing. Standard military muskets were mass-produced at the absolute lowest cost possible. We're talking trash metal, inconsistent barrels, and completely warped bore sizes. But my barrels? They're precision-forged from premium, highly refined iron by the greatest dwarven blacksmiths alive. Every single barrel is perfectly identical in length, diameter, and bore. We are talking factory-grade standardization, dropped straight into a medieval fantasy world. Slap on a proper custom stock, add dual iron sights, premium barrels, standardized ammo, and suddenly my matchlocks aren't just decent, they're going to be the most accurate smoothbore firearms this entire world has ever seen. Which honestly is a pretty low bar, considering they're literally the only smoothbore firearms in existence here. We've got 300 precision muskets, 300 freshly trained shooters, and one guy who hyperfixated on gun history back on Earth, never thinking a useless hobby would literally save his life after getting ice-guyed into another dimension. Let's see how those black beasts like a taste of modern tech. Alright, the gun barrels look gorgeous, but running a premium gun with trash bullets is like putting square wheels on a Ferrari, totally pointless. See, here's the inherent flaw with smoothbore muskets. The bullet has to be slightly smaller than the barrel's bore, just so it can slide down smoothly during a frantic reload. My barrel is exactly 20 millimeters, but the bullet is only about 19. That tiny gap means the lead ball violently rattles around inside the barrel, like a marble bouncing down a metal pipe. By the time it leaves the muzzle, it's already wobbling out of control. And a wobbling bullet means, hey, I was aiming at that massive monster, but somehow hit the guy standing 3 meters to his left. My genius fix? We wrap each lead ball in a microthin layer of paper. That paper cartridge perfectly seals the gap between bullet and barrel, making the ball fit snug so it flies dead straight. It's not rocket science. It's literally wrapping a metal ball in paper. A literal 5-year-old could do it. The only real downside? It leaves a ton of burnt residue in the barrel after every shot, meaning way more cleaning and intense maintenance. But look, I'll choose. Spending 10 extra minutes scrubbing down a gun over, completely missing a monster that's sprinting straight for my face. Any day of the week. So now we've got top-tier barrels, proper iron sights, ergonomic stocks, and custom paper-wrapped ammunition. My new matchlocks are basically the luxury supercars of this world's weaponry, which, once again, is incredibly easy when you're the only car on the road. Now for the next massive challenge. Forging 300 random guys into a lethal, unified army, instead of just 300 independent dudes who happen to carry guns. Honestly, teaching someone the basics of firing a matchlock is a breeze, takes a few days max. But getting 300 rookies to move and fight as one flawless, coordinated unit? And that's where the real nightmare begins. The math is absolutely brutal. A master matchlock gunner can barely squeeze out 2 shots a minute, with a max effective range of barely 100 meters. Meanwhile, these black beasts are sprinting at 6 meters per second. Do the math, from the exact second a monster steps into range, to the moment it's literally ripping off your kneecap. You have exactly 30 seconds. 2 shots max. Maybe 3 if you have god-tier reflexes. Now imagine facing a horde of hundreds. So, I had to cook up a brand new strategy. The 3-volley rotation. Out of my 300 troops, I handpicked the top 100 crack shots to be my dedicated marksmen. The remaining 200, they're loaders. Their entire existence is dedicated to packing gunpowder, wrapping ammo, and prepping the next musket. The second shooter A fires, loader B swaps it for a fully loaded gun. Shooter A fires again, and loader C hands him another fresh weapon. A seamless, endless loop with zero downtime. It's basically a human assembly line, except our final product is pure, monster-killing firepower. The catch? Only 100 guns are active at once instead of the full 300. Sure, each individual volley hits a bit softer, but our rate of fire goes through the roof. Continuous, relentless pressure. Beats massive, slow bursts every single day against a non-stop horde. Sustained DPS wins, no contest. But, and this is a massive life-or-death issue, matchlock troops have to carry open flames on them. At all times, that glowing match cord is literally their only way to fire. And remember, they're also carrying massive bags of highly explosive gunpowder. If one soldier's sparks accidentally graze his buddy's ammo pouch, boom. Friendly fire takes on a terrifyingly literal meaning. Because of that, the guys have to spread way out. No tight formations, no iconic shoulder-to-shoulder wall of steel. We're not in the stand in neat, pretty rows and shoot era yet. That's for flintlocks, which I haven't even unlocked. My men need breathing room, which dilutes our line of fire. And that means I need choke points, barricades, and fortifications stacked in front of them. Anything to slow those monsters down and buy us precious seconds to reload. Every single soldier now has 2 main specialties: deadly marksmanship and speedrunning field defenses. Welcome to my world, where every epic battle inevitably kicks off with everyone spending a grueling hour just building fences and digging trenches before the monster horde arrives. Is it glamorous? Not at all. But is it effective? Absolutely. While my military forces were training, I put the other 300 citizens to work farming. With 20 dwarf blacksmiths mass-producing iron tools, everyone got upgraded with top-tier gear. 500 acres of prime farmland were cleared in record time. Then came planting day, and I legitimately almost had a heart attack. My people were using broadcast seeding, literally just chucking seeds randomly onto the dirt, just scattering them everywhere, like they're feeding pigeons at a local park. Here you go, dirt. Figure it out. This is hands down the most wasteful, inefficient, caveman-level farming method in existence. The seeds just land on top of each other, fight for survival, and half of them don't even take root properly. You waste the crop, you waste the soil, you waste literally everything. Look, I was a total city slicker back in my old world, so I'd never actually paid attention to how they farmed here. But seeing it firsthand now? Oh hell no. Oh hell no. No, no, no. We are not doing this bootleg medieval scatter farming. Not when I have advanced agricultural cheat codes from a modern civilization that literally feeds 8 billion people. Hold up, everyone. Stop planting right now. 600 people stared at me like I'd completely lost my mind. Trust me, guys. You're gonna thank me later. We are about to completely revolutionize agriculture. One perfect seed row at a time. I literally caught my people throwing seeds at the ground, like they were feeding chickens, and I almost had an actual stroke. No, no, no way. Absolutely not. We are not relying on caveman tactics anymore. Take a seat, because class is officially in session. I introduced them to ridge farming, or as I like to call it, the legendary technique that literally rewrote the entire course of human history. And somehow, you guys never managed to figure it out. In over 1,000 years. Here's the breakdown. Instead of just mindlessly tossing seeds onto flat dirt and praying for Mother Nature to sort it out, you completely terraform the soil into alternating rows of elevated ridges and deep furrows. Seeds get dropped on the ridges, while the furrows handle drainage and airflow, serving as your next planting zone. Why is this light years ahead of basic scatter farming? Let me break down the perks. First, insane root growth. Plants on these ridges lock in massive roots and absorb a ton more nutrients. Next up, peak sunlight exposure. The ridge geometry gives every single sprout prime access to light and air. Then there's elite water management. Those furrows capture and distribute rainfall perfectly, wiping out soil erosion. And the ultimate payoff? Massive yields. Concentrated crop placement means hyper-targeted fertilization and absolutely optimized photosynthesis. But here is the absolute ultimate cheat code. Built-in crop rotation within the exact same field. Once you wrap up a harvest, you just flip the setup. The old ridges transform into your new furrows, and the old furrows become your new ridges. Since nothing was growing in those furrows, the soil is still stacked, with fresh nutrients and ready to explode, meaning you secure another massive harvest, without wasting time letting the land rest. One single acre basically does the work of two back on Earth. Historically, this exact strategy doubled total grain output. When ancient China transitioned from the spring and autumn period, right into the chaotic warring states era, yields literally skyrocketed from 50 kilos per acre to a staggering 100. It completely revolutionized the meta of warfare, because armies finally had the food supply to wage massive, long-term campaigns. Ridge farming didn't just scale up food production. It literally forged empires. Now, did my people actually grasp why I was forcing them to reshape perfectly flat, usable dirt into weird bumpy rows? Not a chance. They stared at me, like I was making them play arts and crafts with mud. But hey, I'm the Lord here, and they need me breathing if they want to stay alive. So they sucked it up and followed orders. The second planting wrapped. Stella stepped up to unleash her OP elf magic. Honestly, I was hyped to see it go down. I was anticipating glowing ancient runes, mystical chanting, maybe some intense, dramatic wind pressure, and flashy particle effects, straight out of a AAA video game cutscene. Instead, she just mumbled a couple words, lazily waved her hands, and a faint green glow washed over the field. Boom. Done. That was literally it. No epic theme music, no high-budget CGI, just a casual green flash before she simply walks away.
Honestly, elf magic
Has all the visual hype of someone flipping on a basic desk lamp. But the results? Oh, the results were absolute chef's kiss. Within literally hours, seeds that normally take days to sprout were already bursting through the dirt. Whatever Stella's magic lacked in flashy style, it more than made up for in pure, raw utility. With agriculture on cruise control, I locked back onto what actually matters. Firepower. My team of 18 dwarf blacksmiths, minus the 2 I assigned to farming tools, were pumping out 10 brand new musket barrels every single day. We're talking gorgeous, standardized, precision-forged steel, rolling off that dwarven assembly line like absolute clockwork. But why did I need a massive surplus when my 300 frontline soldiers already had a weapon each? 2 big reasons. First up, more guns per soldier means rapid-fire weapon swapping, and non-stop, overwhelming DPS. Rocking 3 guns per shooter means unleashing 3 devastating volleys before anyone even thinks about reloading. Second, and this is the real game changer, I desperately needed to arm our civilians. When I eventually shut down the barrier trees to head out crystal hunting, my 300 support workers would be sitting ducks inside the base, completely shieldless, with no army left behind to protect them. If even a single shadow beast slipped past my main vanguard and raided the camp, those farmers had to be ready to pull the trigger. So I put everyone through boot camp, all 600 citizens. Every single soul in my territory learned how to load, aim and fire a matchlock musket. My farmers? Part-time militia. My cooks? Backup marksmen. Even Stella probably knows which end the bullet actually shoots out of by now. 20 days flew by, and our very first harvest came in. Modern agriculture plus overpowered elf magic equals infinite food. In record-breaking time, my army was fully trained and disciplined. My dwarven smiths had forged nearly 200 extra muskets on top of our original arsenal, and our defenses were completely locked down. Everything was perfect. It was finally time to go hunt down some monsters on purpose. Alright, this is it. I'm about to drop the light trees protection barrier. March. 300 musket-wielding soldiers straight into Black Beast territory. Slay enough monsters to harvest their crystals. And haul ass back before we all get eaten alive. You know, just another Tuesday in the H-Zone. We put in 20 days of insane prep, cleared 500 acres, built a massive fortress, and dug a monstrous 7-meter wide, 5-meter deep trench completely surrounding our main base. On top of that, I drilled 300 soldiers until they could reload muskets. Dead in their sleep. Time to go beast hunting. Here's the master plan. All 300 soldiers are stationed out front, lined up behind heavy barriers, ready for a brutal old-school field engagement. Meanwhile, the 300 support workers are holding the fort inside, armed with 150 vintage hand cannons and 200 brand-new matchlocks. That's more than enough raw firepower to defend the base. If any sneaky bastards try to flank us from behind, the moment I shut down the light tree shields, the dinner bell officially rings. Stella. Give me a head count. My resident elf scouts the area, blessed with eyesight that would honestly make an eagle jealous. Scanning the horizon, she calls out, about 500. All level 1s. Any level 2s in the mix. None in sight. Hearing that, I let out a breath. So heavy I practically deflated on the spot. 500 level 1s running headfirst into 300 fully armed soldiers. Fortified to the teeth? Yeah, those are odds I can absolutely work with. Just 5 minutes later, the swarm charges and right on cue, Stella drops a major plot twist. They're splitting up. 400 are rushing our front lines, but 100 are circling around to ambush the fortress from the side. Wow, smart little monsters. They actually learned how to flank. Fortunately for us, past me was paranoid enough to weaponize the civilians. We're talking 300 hyped-up citizens with 350 guns behind solid stone walls, versus a mere 100 beasts. Yeah, those monsters picked the wrong back door. Meanwhile, out on the front lines, Durrani, my very first recruit who I just promoted to squad captain. Because hey, simply surviving your first battle instantly earns you a promotion around here, was dead center commanding the main defensive line. He had all 300 soldiers tightly locked into 3 distinct rows, utilizing a flawless 3-volley system, 100 shooters up front, and 200 dedicated loaders behind them constantly prepping the next round of firearms. 250 meters. 200. 150. Open fire. Boom. 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 And this, my friends, is where my 500 IQ tactical genius absolutely breaks the game. See, I didn't just load these muskets with one single bullet. Oh hell no. That would be a massive waste of potential. Instead, each barrel was packed with a heavy-duty 19mm lead ball, followed by a nasty surprise, several 9mm pellets stuffed right behind it. Yeah, we literally invented the medieval shotgun shell. So when 100 muskets all fire at the exact same time, they aren't just sending 100 shots downrange. Try over 500. We're talking a solid wall of flying lead that shreds everything in its path. Sure, those smaller pellets don't pack quite the same punch as the main slug, but against these oversized, wolf-like monsters, a 9mm lead ball to the dome is more than enough to put them down for good. The opening volley was absolute carnage. The entire front line of beasts basically got deleted from existence. But wait. This is where our 3-volley rotation system really starts to flex. The front line instantly swapped their empty guns for fresh ones, handed up by the row behind them, and immediately let loose again. And just seconds after that, the 3rd volley dropped. That's 3 full salvos in under 15 seconds, which means over 1,500 projectiles were currently screaming through the air. The monsters had barely managed to sprint a few dozen yards, and already, more than half of their 400-strong horde was wiped out. The remaining survivors actually screeched to a halt. Their tiny, primitive brains completely short-circuited. They literally couldn't process what they were witnessing. Their pack was exploding into mist, and they had no idea why. There were no mages, no arrows in the sky, just pure, deafening thunder and instant death. Meanwhile, over at the fortress, the 100 beasts trying to flank us finally made their move, charging the walls at absolute breakneck speed. Bold strategy, guys, but a spectacularly terrible idea. The second they crossed the 50-meter mark, all 350 barrels inside the fortress unleashed absolute hell. We're talking 200 matchlocks and 150 hand cannons, all firing in one massive, synchronized blast at point-blank range. At 50 meters, even a handheld hand cannon, wielded by a complete amateur who'd never held a weapon before today, is going to shred whatever it's pointed at. The result was a literal hurricane of metal. A massive wall of lead pellets from 350 guns turned the entire battlefield into a giant meat grinder. Those 100 flanking beasts? They didn't just fail to breach the perimeter. They didn't even survive to take another step. Total, unconditional annihilation. Not a single monster even touched the walls. Meanwhile, back at the main defensive line, the surviving beasts were just standing there, legitimately questioning their life choices. But my loaders had already finished the next reload cycle. That meant 300 muskets were fully loaded, staring down a completely confused and traumatized enemy. Right on cue, my elite marksmen began picking off the beasts with precision snipes. We're talking from over 150 meters out, and even at that insane range, they were easily bagging more than half their targets. Premium dwarf-forged barrels, plus paper-wrapped cartridges, plus actual iron sights? Yeah, that equals an accuracy cheat code this world has never seen. From any ranged weapon. Realizing they were cooked, the remaining monsters did the only smart thing they'd done all day. They booked it. The exact second they turned tail and ran, my people swarmed out of cover and started dragging those massive beast corpses straight back into the fortress. See, every single body meant a jackpot of crystals. Every crystal meant more raw energy to feed the light tree. Every bit of energy translated into higher-tier weapons, a bigger territory, and an even longer survival streak. Final score? 500 beasts attacked, absolutely 0 survived. Our total casualties? Literally 0. Not a single scratch, not a single injury, and not one single person harmed. A 500-0 wipeout. This was easily the most one-sided flawless victory in H-Zone history, which, to be fair, is a pretty short history, considering no one else has ever managed to survive here. But still, modern Earth technology, fantasy monsters, absolute 0. Honestly, I'm starting to think this whole worst territory assignment in existence thing might actually turn out to be a massive win. Right after the slaughter, the battle, I handed down one ultra-important order. Do not break formation to go looting bodies. Drag everything back inside the fortress walls first. Why? Because a lone musket soldier out in the open is basically a free meal. You get one shot. If you miss, that beast is shredding your face before you can even think about reloading. My army is absolutely terrifying as a collective unit. But individually, they're just regular guys holding overpriced metal sticks. Discipline and organization are everything here. If we lose our formation, we instantly become beast snacks. So, everyone fell in line and started hauling the corpses back, turning the battlefield into the world's most disturbing grocery run. Now, your average level 1 beast only weighs around 70 or 80 pounds, which is basically the size of a large dog. And honestly, they look just like one, too. So yeah, it looked exactly as bizarre as it sounds. Just hundreds of my men, hauling monster carcasses across an open field. We were only about halfway through when suddenly, clang, clang, clang. The alarm gong starts blaring. More beasts incoming. Drop the bodies. Battle formation, right now. Instantly, 300 soldiers ditched their disgusting cargo and snapped into a perfect firing line. And sure enough, another massive wave was charging at us from the horizon. There were fewer of them this time, maybe 100, but then I spotted something that made my stomach completely drop. Level 2 beasts. About 30 of them were mixed right in with the level 1s. Think of level 2s as level 1s that absolutely live in the gym. Same hideous design. 6 legs, a massive jaw and tentacles, plus shoulder spikes, but these bad boys are human-sized, not dog-sized. Their tentacles can stretch over 10 feet out, and they're thick enough to easily choke the life out of a grown man. These things are genuine, certified threats. My soldiers visibly tensed up, and a few hands were even shaking. But hey, look at the bright side, bigger targets are way easier to hit. Ready. Fire. Bang. Fire. Bang. Fire! Bang! Just 3 volleys later it was over. Every single beast was wiped out. As it turned out, the level 2's massive size actually worked entirely against them. My riflemen had been struggling with their accuracy against those dog-sized level 1s, because they're so small and fast to lock onto. But these human-sized level 2s? Man, they might as well have painted giant bullseyes on their chests. And defensively speaking, level 2s aren't really any tougher than level 1s. When you're dealing with a lead ball flying at 1,000 miles an hour, that size upgrade just means there's more meat for the bullet to rip through. It's beautiful, really. True ballistic equality. After that second wave, something absolutely magical happened. Nothing. No third wave and no more alarm gongs. Either we had totally cleared out every single beast in the area, or the survivors collectively realized, yeah, let's probably not mess with the Thunder people. Either way, it gave me plenty of time to harvest my mana crystals in peace. And oh man, the loot, the drops were absolutely insane. Over 500 level 1 beasts slain, plus 30-something level 2s. Now, level 1s only drop crystals at a 10% rate, but level 2s? A clean 100%. Every single level 2 is a guaranteed crystal. Sure, most of them are just level 1 crystals, but there's a sweet 5% chance of bagging a level 2 crystal. The premium stuff that packs 10 times more energy. In the end, we walked away with 74 level 1 crystals and 2 level 2s. Talk about a jackpot. I immediately fed them to the light tree. Right off the bat, 30 level 1s. Went straight toward the tree's monthly upkeep. Yup, this tree literally has a subscription fee. 30 crystals a month just to keep the lights on, because of course it does. But the remaining 44 level 1 crystals? They got converted into a solid 4,400 energy points. And those 2 level 2 crystals secured me another 2 grand. Grand total? A whopping 6,400 energy points. I have never been this rich in my entire interdimensional life. So time to go shopping. I dropped 3,000 points on 3 tons of gunpowder. My previous stash of 500 kilos was practically gone. After all the training and battles. Never running low on that again. Then, 400 points for 4 tons of lead. We've got bullets for days now. And then came the big brain purchase. I spent 25 points to summon 50 light tree soldiers. And I mean real soldiers, not some converted civilians. Or random thugs I guilt-tripped off the streets. These are authentic, tree-born, combat-ready troops. Pre-programmed with tactical genius. And elite fighting instincts. But wait, why only 50? That's barely a platoon, right? Well, that's because I'm not using them as frontline grunts. I'm grooming them to be officers, squad leaders, and tactical directors. The literal backbone of any functional military. See, my 300 civilian turn soldiers can point, shoot, reload, and follow basic commands, sure. But their battlefield awareness? Absolutely atrocious. They freeze up, they skip steps, and they basically need someone screaming in their ear 24/7. What they need isn't more target practice. It's elite, small unit leadership. By embedding those 50 tree-born elites across my 300 shooters, I get a perfect ratio of 1 seasoned professional for every 6 amateurs. That's 1 battle-hardened squad leader who actually knows what he's doing, keeping everyone laser-focused, perfectly organized, and definitely not shooting each other in the back. It's the literal difference between a chaotic mob with guns and a highly disciplined army. I hoarded my last 500 energy points for emergencies, because if the H-zone has taught me anything, it's that this universe loves throwing unhinged curveballs when you least expect it. Still, sitting on 74 crystals, 6,400 energy, 50 elite soldiers, 3 tons of gunpowder, and absolutely 0 casualties? Honestly, not bad for a dead man walking. A total underdog lord nobody wanted to back. But let me tell you about the real nightmare I've been dealing with. It's not even the black beasts. It's my own troops' utter inability to tell left from right. I tried running basic drill training and formations. Super simple stuff, right? I ordered them to face left. Half of them went left, the other half pivoted right. A few just started spinning in circles, and one guy straight up just sat on the floor. I've got 300 soldiers who can load and fire a musket, but they couldn't march in a straight line, even if their lives depended on it. Which, by the way, they absolutely do. And remember, I'm just one guy. I can't micromanage 300 absolute idiots all at once. It's like running a chaotic kindergarten class, except the toddlers are fully armed. That's exactly why I dropped 25 energy points on 50 tree-born soldiers, not to join the front lines, but to act as instructors. I deployed 40 of them to ruthlessly whip those 300 recruits into shape, and kept 10 to give the logistics workers some basic training. These guys are professional drill sergeants, who actually comprehend the concept of turn left. The shift in discipline was instant. Turns out, having a terrifyingly competent commander screaming in your face is light years more effective than having me, one profoundly exhausted, increasingly hoarse lord, trying to solo manage the entire operation. And now that I've secured 3,000 kilos of fresh gunpowder, we can finally transition to actual live-fire target practice. Before this, our training was an absolute joke. We'd load the musket with precious powder, dry fire to pretend we shot, pour the powder back out, and repeat. It's like trying to learn how to drive by sitting in a parked car and making vroom vroom engine noises with your mouth. Sure, you memorize the mechanical steps, but you have absolutely zero clue what's going to happen when you actually turn the key. But now, it's live-fire drills, real bullets, massive explosions, and real, raw power. And that's the magic of this setup. In record time, my troops leveled up from, "Hey, I think I know how to hold this," to actually landing headshots in just a few days. The massive catch. Gunpowder burns out insanely fast. See those lead bullets? You can literally dig them out of the dirt and reuse them. But once that powder goes boom, it's gone forever. Training an entire army eats through your reserves, like a raging wildfire tearing through dry kindling. But I wasn't just planning for basic target practice. I was about to completely revolutionize our entire ammunition supply chain. Look, the raw powder harvested from the light tree is exactly that, a superfine, dusty powder. And in that raw state, it comes with a nightmare of issues. Major, game-breaking flaws. Problem number 1. Separation. Gunpowder is a delicate mix of 3 ingredients: saltpeter, sulfur, and charcoal. The issue is they all have completely different densities. The second you bump and rattle the crates during transport, they separate into distinct layers, looking like a terribly mixed cocktail. That means before every single battle, you'd have to dump the whole batch out and remix it by hand. Imagine an ambush. My bad. Vile demonic beasts. Mind giving me 5 minutes to stir my powder real quick? Yeah, completely unviable. Problem number 2. Moisture. Fine powder has a massive surface area, meaning it drinks up humidity from the air like a literal sponge. Damp powder gives you pathetic, weak shots or just straight-up misfires. And problem number 3. Pure inconsistency. When you cram loose powder down a gun barrel, it crushes into one dense, solid block. Sparks can't travel evenly through a compressed brick. Only some of it ignites while the rest suffocates from lack of oxygen, resulting in a mountain of unburned fuel, just getting blasted out the front of the barrel completely wasted. It's the exact same logic as trying to light a campfire. By stacking your logs way too tightly, you're just burning resources for zero heat. Elite marksmen know how to pack powder flawlessly. Not too tight but not too loose either. But mastering that takes years of elite training. Meanwhile, my rookie soldiers have been holding firearms for a grand total of about 3 weeks. The ultimate solution? Granulation. You take the raw dust, mix in precisely 8% water. Mix that stuff up until it's a thick, clay-like paste, and then press it through a sieve to craft neat, perfectly uniform pellets. Next, let them dry under the sun. And I mean only the sun. Never use fire. Seriously, unless you're speedrunning an express ticket to the afterlife. Now, granulated gunpowder is a total cheat code. It fixes the separation issue. Sure, the grains might settle by size while being hauled around, but every single grain already contains all 3 core ingredients, fused together perfectly. Big chunks or tiny grains. It's the exact same recipe with the exact same lethal power. Then there's the moisture factor. Having a lower surface area to volume ratio means these granules absorb way less dampness from the air. But the real game changer? It's the raw explosive force. These pellets don't compact into one solid, useless block of clay. They naturally leave tiny air pockets all between them, even when packed under heavy pressure. Those gaps let oxygen and fire rip through the entire chamber instantly, ensuring the powder burns complete, fast, and flawlessly consistent every single time. No wasted fuel coughing out of the barrel. You get way more explosive energy out of the exact same amount of powder, which means I can seriously cut down on my load per shot, while keeping the exact same lethal stopping power. And honestly, for a guy whose entire gunpowder supply literally depends on a magical tree that I have to risk my neck just to feed, Saving on ammo consumption like this is basically free real estate. Oh, and our bombs are getting a massive buff too. Same weight but a vastly bigger boom. Plus, less gunk left inside the barrels. Means our guns will actually last way longer before needing maintenance. And to think all of this comes from just adding water to powder and mashing it through a basic kitchen strainer. You know, sometimes the absolute most mind-blowing innovations aren't complex at all. They're incredibly obvious. Well, assuming you're from a world that figured it out, like 4 centuries ago. So I spent the afternoon showing my crew exactly how to granulate our gunpowder. The instructions were dead simple. Mix it to clay, push it through the screen, and dry it in the sun. If I catch anyone using fire, I will personally haunt your spirit. Thankfully, nobody tried to play with fire, and our very first batch came out looking absolutely perfect. We test-fired a few rounds, and the upgrade was literally night and day. Super clean shots, insanely consistent power, and best of all, my soldiers didn't have to worry about fussy packing techniques ever again. Just pack and pour. See? Earth's basic science is still absolutely undefeated. Now, I wasn't actually there for this next part, but I heard all about it later on. And let me tell you, it explains everything about why this world suddenly became a living nightmare. While I was chilling back home, teaching literal criminals how to manufacture high-grade gunpowder without blowing their own faces off. Meanwhile, Ramrat and Gardrilia were soaring over the desolate ruins of the destroyed Elven Kingdom on that ridiculous bone dragon in Zone B42. This was a high-tier Elven territory that got completely obliterated during the Black Tide. Honestly, obliterated doesn't even do it justice. Over 1 million people used to call this place home. Lush farmlands used to stretch to the horizon, bustling with livestock and beautiful architecture. Now, just trampled crops, shattered walls, blood-drenched stone, and bones. Literally just endless bones everywhere. The livestock had been picked clean to the bone, and the people met the exact same horrific fate. Dark beasts of every imaginable tier were just chilling among the ruins, like they had just moved into a luxury vacation resort. We're talking level 1s, level 3s, and even level 5s, monsters over 10 meters tall, just casually napping in the debris of what used to be a thriving civilization. Gardrilia looked down, horrified, and muttered, "This is awful." But Ramrat just laughed it off. "Come on, you've seen destroyed territories before. Not a high-level one like this," she replied. 1 million lives, wiped out, and now it's just a graveyard. Their orders were simple. Do a quick flyover, confirm if the missing Archmage, Padurbos, was still alive or dead, and then head right back to file a report. A textbook scouting mission, right? But then, Gardrilia suddenly screamed, "Fly southeast, right now." Ramrat was totally thrown off. "Wait, why? What is your problem? Just do it." He quickly steered the bone dragon toward the southeast, probably assuming she was just overreacting. But then, he saw it. A massive black dome, easily over 100 meters tall, rising straight out of the earth like a colossal, pitch-black tumor corrupting the landscape. And suddenly, his voice started to shake. Is that a black nest?" "Yeah," Gardrillo muttered, shaking down to his bones. "And not just any nest, that's a high-level black nest. Alright, let me break down exactly why. 2 of the top 20 absolute strongest lords on the planet were currently trembling like terrified kids. See, black nests are the ground zero where black beasts spawn. They're literally monstrous, living factories, and their threat level is determined by their massive height. Anything under 50 meters tall is a low-level nest cranking out basic level 1 and 2 trash mobs. Under 100 meters gets you a mid-level nest. But 100 to 200 meters? That's high-level territory. And the monolith standing before them easily cleared 100 meters. A high-level nest doesn't waste time spawning weak level 1s. Its absolute baseline minimum output is level 3 beasts. Now, level 3s are cow-sized, walking nightmares, armed with 6 terrifying tentacles, specialized for shredding you in melee combat, and 2 that act as organic railguns, sniping lethal bone spikes from over 100 meters away. These bone spikes tear through standard armor like wet tissue paper. You literally need active magic shields just to survive a volley. Worst of all, high-level nests can scale all the way up to producing level 7 beasts. We're talking 30-meter-tall behemoths. A single level 7 can solo an entire mobilized army, and even legendary Archmage tier fighters struggle to take one down in a 1v1. But it gets worse. The nest doesn't just spawn one and stop. It continuously pumps them out in an endless horde, operating like a hellish factory that never goes off the clock. The only reason humanity's lords managed to expand their territories for the past 150 years was because there were 0 high-level nests anywhere near the light domain. The surrounding borders only harbored low and mid-level nests. Lords usually spent their days farming level 1 and 2 fodder, treating the occasional level 3 or 4 like a rare, high-stakes boss raid. But a high-level nest setting up shop right on the light domain's doorstep? That completely rewrites the rules of survival. Rookie lords who could barely handle level 1 mobs would now have to face brutal level 3s as the baseline standard enemy. The critical expansion that's been keeping the light domains 2 billion citizens fed would immediately grind to a screeching halt, or worse, get completely pushed back. Ramrat and Gardrilla locked eyes, sharing the exact same terrifying realization. Yeah, we are profoundly screwed. Meanwhile, over in the H-Zone, completely oblivious to the impending apocalyptic doom, a certain strikingly handsome lord was busy teaching his citizens how to press wet gunpowder through a basic kitchen strainer, feeling absolutely thrilled with his own engineering genius. Yep, that would be me. Man, ignorance really is bliss. At least for now. So while I was over here minding my own business, cooking up batches of black powder, and desperately trying not to get eaten, 2 of the most powerful lords on the planet were busy committing what might honestly be the most selfishly brain-dead move in the entire history of the light domain. Now, I didn't find out the juicy details until way later, but here's how the madness went down. Ramrat and Gardrilla stumbled right onto a high-level black nest. We're talking a massive 100-meter-tall monster factory, capable of endlessly pumping out Tier 3 to Tier 7 beasts. An absolute ticking time bomb, ready to completely swallow up every single territory in the Eastern Light Domain. And their grand idea? To sweep it under the rug. But look at their logic. A century ago, the Light Domain discovered a high-level nest up in the north. Immediately, the Central Council ordered every single nearby lord to launch an all-out assault. 300 lords charged in, and over 200 of them were wiped out. Millions of soldiers completely slaughtered. And the survivors? Their lands were left utterly devastated. It took literal decades for the northern territories to even begin to bounce back. Fast forward to now, and there's a nest in the east. Right in their own backyard. If they report it, the council is going to pull the exact same card. Order every eastern lord to mobilize. And take a wild guess who the top 2 highest-ranking lords in the east are. Yep, Gardrilla and Ramrat. They'd be forced to lead the suicide charge. Their territories, everything they've built, and every single life depending on them, would be tossed straight into a brutal meat grinder. Gardrilla had to think about her vampire clan. They barely number 1 million. They put absolutely everything on the line to elevate her to a lord. Their wealth, their finest soldiers. Heck, 5,000 of her elite warriors vanished in just one of the recent crises. This domain isn't just some personal playground. It is the literal lifeline for the entire vampire race. Within the light domain, lose this territory, and vampires lose all their political leverage. Maybe even their chance at survival. And Ramrat was running the exact same math on his end. His territory is his power, which is his status. Sacrificing everything for the greater good? Sure, sounds heroic on paper, but heroism doesn't pay the bills or keep your head on your shoulders. So these 2, who usually can't agree on a single thing, made a pact to keep their mouths shut. Just leave that monster nest right where it is. Their own domains are maxed out and strong enough to tank it anyway. As for the weaker lords and rookie territories nearby, yeah, not their problem. 2 of the most overpowered players on the planet literally chose to save their own skins, instead of warning the rest of the world about a literal apocalypse. Cool. Great. Fantastic. That definitely won't come back to absolutely wreck us later. Meanwhile, back at my base, something beautiful was brewing. Stella, my gorgeous elf mage whom I literally hired just to farm herbs, had just discovered firearms. Boom! A boulder 100 meters out instantly vaporized into dust. And there she stood, cradling her matchlock rifle like it was a newborn kitten, her eyes gleaming with what I can only describe as pure obsession. It was love at first shot. Her bow? Abandoned. Her arrows? Completely forgotten. Centuries of legendary elven archery tradition, tossed straight into the trash for a metal tube that goes boom. And honestly, I totally get it. See, elves aren't top-tier archers because they're physically jacked. they're actually pretty average. In the raw strength department, an elven bow doesn't pack that much firepower compared to, say, a beastfolk longbow. What makes elven archers so legendary is their insane precision. Every single elf is basically a walking aimbot. They can snipe a fly from 200 meters away. Their secret weapon? Their eyes. Elven vision is completely cracked. Where a human sees a target the size of a tiny speck in the distance, an elf sees it clearly as the size of a fist. We're talking built-in zoom, natural magnification.
Permanent eagle vision.
Now, imagine giving someone with literal, built-in binoculars, a weapon that hits harder than any bow, travels faster than any arrow, and requires zero physical strength to pull the trigger. Elves and muskets aren't just a good combo, they're a match made in heaven. It's like handing a Formula 1 driver a rocket ship. The god-tier skill was always there. The primitive gear was just holding them back. Stella was already sniping targets that my absolute best human marksman couldn't even spot at that distance. Give her time, and she's locking it down as the most lethal sniper. On the continent, an elf with a gun is pure nightmare fuel. And now I had one chilling right in my territory, happily turning boulders into dust. She looked up at me with those mesmerizing elf eyes, cradling that musket like it was a prize trophy. Lord Andy, can I actually keep this? Stella, you can have a whole arsenal if you want. Somewhere in the heavens, the god of archery was weeping. Sorry pal, the future belongs to gunpowder. Look, let's be real, elves and firearms are a match. Made in absolute heaven. Elf archers are legendary across the land for a reason. We're talking straight-up aimbot, never miss accuracy. Even if an enemy is tanking it in full heavy plate, an elf can snipe an arrow right through the microscopic gap between the helmet and the chest guard. That's like threading a needle from a football field away, while the needle is sprinting full speed right at you. Insane, right? But then, the Black Beast showed up and completely ruined their meta. See, taking down a Black Beast requires pure, raw DPS. You either need to slice them clean in half or blow them to bits. And those elegant elf arrows? Sure, they're precise, but they're basically acupuncture needles against a literal tank. You could pump 20 arrows into a tier 1 beast, and it would barely even flinch. Suddenly, the elves' greatest flex, their pinpoint precision, became utterly useless. When the enemy didn't care about weak spots, and just needed to be blasted hard. Yeah, some high-tier elf mages can buff arrows with magic for extra kick, but that's rare and burns through mana instantly. Your average elf archer was basically a bystander against these beasts. The undisputed rulers of the battlefield became the ultimate liability. It's like bringing a sniper rifle to a demolition site. They tried switching to crossbows for a bit more impact, but the reload time was painfully slow, and it still lacked the firepower to pierce anything past tier 2. Elves went from "we are the apex ranged gods" to being a mild inconvenience at best. But then Stella got her hands on my matchlocks. Boom! Problem solved. Every single one of them. Instantly. These muskets pack more punch than any bow could ever dream of. That massive damage deficit that ruined the elves? Completely erased. Look, a chunk of flying lead doesn't care how tough a beast is. Physics always wins. And sure, standard musket accuracy is trash compared to elven archery. But that's only for regular humans. If you hand a firearm to someone with built-in biological cheat code vision, someone who can literally snipe a fly's kneecap from 200 meters away, congrats, you've just created the most lethal soldier on the planet. So out of nowhere, Durrani hits me up saying Stella needs to talk ASAP. My mind instantly goes to the worst case. Are our crops dying? I sprint over, pure panic rushing through my veins. Is it the farmland? Did everything catch on fire? Stella just blinks at me. Wait, what? No, silly. The crops are completely fine. I take a breath. Oh. Then what's up? She looks at me dead serious. I want to propose. A massive formal partnership between you and the entire elven race. I literally freeze. Partnership? With the legendary elves? Like, me? The dirt poor, bankrupt lord from the slums who got banished to the lethal H-zone? Partnering up with a global powerhouse civilization of 20 million people? An empire that ranks in the top 10 absolute strongest factions in the entire light domain? I'm sorry, run that by me again? What could a guy like me possibly offer a race of gods? She slowly hoists her matchlock rifle into the air like it's the Holy Grail. We need to buy your gunpowder. All of it. Ah, now it makes sense. The elves don't actually care about me. They just want my explosive boom powder. And honestly, fair play. The guns themselves are just basic metal tubes. Any random dwarf blacksmith can forge those in his sleep. But the specialized gunpowder cultivated from light trees, specifically from my personal light tree tech tree upgrades, that is the ultimate secret sauce. That's the only reason these bullets actually disintegrate black beasts, instead of just minorly annoying them. Think about the math here. God tier elven accuracy plus my high tier gunpowder tech equals the triumphant return of the elven hunter, as the undisputed dominant apex predator of the battlefield. They would literally evolve from embarrassingly useless to terrifyingly, game-breakingly overpowered overnight. Now, don't get me wrong. Stella is an absolute sweetheart. And every single guy in my territory is completely, hopelessly, head over heels in love with her. I mean, she's breathtaking. Even by impossibly high elven beauty standards. But between us? Yeah, there is zero romantic chemistry. Mainly because she is technically several hundred years old. Which, okay, look, I logically know elves can live for well over a millennium. And that this age gap is totally normal by their standards. But my modern human brain still does a major double take. But the real reason we aren't a thing? Well, let's just say, let's face it, her figure is more flat runway than peak mountain range. And my personal tastes lean heavily toward the absolute opposite. End of the spectrum. Look, I'm a man of culture, and I'm not gonna apologize for it. But anyway, back to business. The elves want firepower, and I've got the goods. This single deal could completely evolve my entire territory. From a struggling backwater underdog into the strategic partner of a legendary powerhouse race. Seriously, a broke, no-name guy like me, the absolute laughingstock at the bottom of the party list. The ultimate charity case was just offered a massive partnership by one of the most elite, dominant races on the entire continent. All because I brought literal gun violence to a sword and sorcery world. Turns out, Stella had really done her homework. She didn't just chill in my territory. She spent every second analyzing exactly how my operation worked, and she cracked the ultimate secret. The gun itself is just a metal tube. Any basic dwarf smith can forge that. But the gunpowder? That's where the real magic happens. And we're not talking about your average black powder either. It absolutely has to be infused with light tree energy. Sure, you could hand a sample to some genius alchemist clan, and they'd reverse engineer the recipe within a week. But a cheap, knockoff powder without that light tree core? It wouldn't even leave a scratch on a high-tier black beast. It's literally the difference between premium medical-grade stuff and a useless sugar pill. Looks identical but does absolutely nothing. This meant the elves couldn't synthesize it, they couldn't copy it, and they couldn't buy it from anyone else on the market. They absolutely needed me. The broke, slum-born nobody from the absolute H-zone. And man, I was hyped. A partnership with the elves would basically solve every single one of my problems. Get elf mages for agriculture? Boom, food crisis solved. Equip elf sharpshooters with heavy muskets? Boom, defense crisis solved. Plus, getting access to elite elf trade goods. These guys literally control 80% of the fruit supply, and half of all the vegetables. In the entire light domain, my tiny territory could finally exit desperate survival mode, and start absolutely thriving overnight. But then, reality decided to slap me right across the face again. To mass-produce gunpowder, I need massive amounts of light tree energy. To harvest that energy, I need high-grade beast crystals. To get those crystals, I have to hunt down deadly beasts. And to slay enough wild beasts to supply an entire empire of elves with firepower, I need to become way more powerful than I currently am. It's that exact same garbage, never-ending cycle that's been haunting me since day one. I was sitting there running the math and straight up losing my mind when Stella suddenly pulled out this tiny, purple metallic box that looked just like a basic lunchbox. Honestly, it looked completely unremarkable. Lord Andy, as a token of our absolute goodwill, the elven race would like to present you with this, a severance box. I just stared at the thing, like she just handed me a massive Christmas present. Without a name tag. Like, wait, what's the catch here? You already know that the light tree's barrier instantly vaporizes beast crystals on contact, right? Meaning you have to completely drop your defenses just to feed those crystals to the tree. Yeah, this was literally my absolute biggest nightmare. The one bottleneck that turned every single upgrade into a total suicide mission. And the exact reason top-tier lords get wiped out during routine base maintenance. Well, this box is forged from a legendary alloy. that completely blocks the light tree's disintegration field. Just pop the crystals inside, and they'll remain perfectly intact right inside the safe zone. Bro. My jaw hit the floor so hard it shattered, and then kept drilling straight down into the Earth's core. Are you telling me I can just throw crystals into this little lunchbox, stroll right through my light tree's barrier, and they won't just vanish into thin air? Exactly. It's really that simple. Just like that. I stared down at the box, then looked up at Stella, then back at the box and then right back at Stella. Do you guys even realize how massive of a game changer this is? Before the severance box, you had to shut down your entire defense network, deploy your army in an absolute state of panic, and desperately scramble to farm crystals for resources, all while bloodthirsty monsters swarmed you from every single angle. Then you had to drag everything back, feed the tree, and pray to the gods that the shields booted back up, before some massive beast completely devoured your base. We're talking hours of fatal exposure, leaving your entire population sitting ducks to get absolutely slaughtered. This is precisely how lords get annihilated, even the highest-ranking ones. But now, with this severance box, you can keep the shields completely active while sending out your army, slay the beasts safely outside the perimeter, harvest the crystals, pack them into your magical little lunchbox, and just casually walk right back inside the barrier. After that, you only need to drop defenses for a literal hot minute, while the tree safely consumes the crystals. Reactivate the shields. Done. We just cut down hours of pure vulnerability into mere minutes. Calling this an improvement? Bro, it's a literal cheat code. This takes us from trying to swim across an entire ocean to just driving across a massive bridge. And the elves just handed it to me. Just a casual token of good faith. These purple boxes must be worth an absolute, astronomical fortune. This is the exact kind of god-tier artifact that every high-ranking lord in the light domain would brutally murder each other to get their hands on. Yet the elves just tossed it over like it was a basic business card, which highlights two crucial facts. First, these guys are absolutely desperate for my gunpowder. And second, they are dying to reclaim their long-lost dominance on the battlefield. I stared at Stella holding this tiny purple container that completely wiped out my absolute worst tactical nightmare. Suddenly, a single thought locked into my head. This elf gunpowder alliance is a done deal. The only real question left is how insanely high I can jack up the price per kilo. But wait, how have I literally never heard of this item before? That was my immediate red flag. I mean, if a literal magic lunchbox that instantly solves every single ruler's ultimate problem actually exists, it should be legendary. Lords should be waging all-out wars to claim them. There should be dedicated wiki pages, rabid fan clubs, or a whole damn religion built around it. Then Stella broke it down for me, and the dark, corrupt politics of this world suddenly made perfect sense. Point number 1. The raw material required to forge these severance boxes is ridiculously rare. You won't find a single speck of it inside the light domain. Only a tiny handful of lawless external territories have even a microscopic trace of it, which means the total number of boxes in circulation is laughably small. We're talking fewer than 10 lords out of 500 actually own one. Point number 2. Their true utility was only stumbled upon about 15 years ago. Before that breakthrough, everyone just had these bizarre metal cubes collecting dust, completely clueless as to what they actually did. Nobody could crack the code. For 15 whole years, some high lord was probably using a priceless artifact as a glorified paperweight. And third, this is where it gets really juicy. The elite, apex lords who finally uncovered the box's hidden potential, hoarded them instantly, and locked down all the info. We're talking maximum security, dead silence, no leaks, no updates, and zero hints to the newbies. The elites got filthy rich while the rookies had absolutely no clue they were missing out. And that's exactly why nobody at my rank has ever heard of a severance box. Those high and mighty lords are hoarding the most broken cheat code item in existence, gatekeeping it like their lives depend on it, which honestly their political leverage totally does. But this is where the story gets absolutely insane. Around 6 months ago, the high-level Elven territory, yeah, the powerhouse that just got obliterated by the Black Tide, stumbled upon the raw materials to craft a severance box. During an expansion raid, the elves actually forged it, their very first one. Finally, they had a tool to hyperdrive their domain's growth, and finally go toe-to-toe with the top tiers. But then word leaked, and the Central Council, the supreme shot-callers of the light domain, dispatched a mid-tier archmage straight to the elven domain. With a brutal message, "This belongs to us now. Handed over, signed, and sealed." The government literally just hijacked it. Like a schoolyard bully jacking lunch money. Nice severance box you got there. Shame if something happened to it. Be a total shame if we had to seize it. The elves were absolutely furious but totally helpless. Their political clout in the light domain is way weaker than you'd expect. Sure, they boast more mages per capita than humans, but humans outnumber them 50 to 1. So even with 10 times the magic adaptation rate, the elves only produce a fraction of the mages humans do, in sheer volume. And when it comes to raw vanguard power, humans dominate the battlefield completely. Elves can barely field any battle energy warriors. In the light domain's official power rankings, humans and beastkin claim the crown at the top, followed by dwarves and giants. The elves? 5th place at best. That's definitely not a position where you can tell the council to go screw themselves. Screw themselves. So, the elves negotiated a delay. "We'll surrender it, but let us use it for 3 months first." After all, we made it. The council agreed. But then disaster struck. The black tide hit, and the elven territory was completely wiped off the map. Talk about immaculate timing, universe. But right as the territory was collapsing, the elf lord clutched up and triggered a secret, last-ditch emergency teleportation circle, yeeting the severance box straight back to the elven homeland. Just the box, mind you. Priorities, right? The land was completely wiped and the people scattered. But hey, the magical lunchbox made it out alive. Except now, the elves had a massive problem. The High Council was still breathing down their necks for it, and currently, the entire region supposed to be holding it was reduced to ash. If the council ever caught wind that the box survived, they'd come knocking on their door again. And this time they'd play dirty, no more polite negotiations, and absolutely 0 3-month grace periods. Worse yet, if the council seized it, it would go directly into the hands of a human lord. Specifically, a human lord loyal to the council. Which basically meant power-scaling mankind into absolute dominance. While the elves got completely shafted. The elves didn't sacrifice a high-tier territory, and thousands of innocent lives, just to hand over their ultimate crown jewel to their biggest political rivals. So they cooked up a brilliant master plan. Hide it with someone so completely obscure, so utterly insignificant, and so far off the council's radar, that nobody in their right mind would ever think to look there. And that's where I come in. The total nobody lord of the H-Zone. A place so pathetic even the monster beasts didn't bother visiting twice. Stella didn't pull up to my territory just to play farmer and grow wheat. She came because my literal middle-of-nowhere outpost is the one spot the Central Council would never check. It's the most remote, irrelevant, completely ghosted territory in the entire light domain. I'm so deeply off the grid that I'm practically operating on a whole different dimension. The elves didn't choose me because I was some chosen one. They chose me because I am a literal ghost. But then Stella saw my arsenal, and her entire mission flipped. It went from, hide the box here until the heat dies down, to hold up, this guy is packing heat. That could completely revolutionize our entire civilization. We need to lock in a partnership with him immediately. So wait, let me get this straight. The elves' most overpowered relic in existence turns out to be, somehow landed right in my backyard. And since I'm a total nobody, this is the last place anyone would look. Now, the elves are literally begging to trade it for my stash of gunpowder. The exact same weapons everyone clowned on me for are now the only things that can save them. The trash lord, the worthless territory, the tech tree everyone completely ignored, and the tech they called goblin garbage. Yet here are the high and mighty elves, bringing the rarest artifact on the continent, straight to my feet. I locked eyes with Stella. She stared back, the severance box sitting between us, radiating an ominous purple glow. Inside lay a massive political conspiracy, tied directly to the Central Council, a completely wiped-out land, a dead archmage, and the final, desperate gamble of an entire race. "Stella," I said, trying my absolute best not to let my voice crack. From pure hype, "I think we have a deal. The universe spent months trying to spawn kill me, but it looks like it's finally starting to feel guilty." 5 days later, it was time to test this magical lunchbox. I handpicked 100 of my absolute best troops, and gave them a quick briefing. "You have exactly 1 hourglass, 15 minutes. If you're not back by then, I'll feel super bad at your funeral, which I won't even attend." Because I'll be chilling safely inside the barrier. The strategy was surgical. 50 gunners, with 1 musket each, and 50 support troops packing 3 extra muskets.
Plus ou que Spears.
A brand new invention I had the dwarves rush build. For one specific reason. Dragging giant monster corpses at Mach speed. Picture a long pole with a massive hook on the end. Snag the beast, yank the beast, and run like your life depends on it, because it literally does. First, I sent 3 scouts out on ropes, tethered to the base like dogs on a leash, just to check if any monsters were camping. Right outside the shield. They crept out in a tight triangle formation, back-to-back, weapons raised, scanning the tree line like 3 incredibly anxious meerkats. Nothing. Total silence. With the all-clear given, the rest of the squad moved out, and immediately started dropping portable barricades, prefab fences, brutal spike racks, and heavy anti-cavalry blockers they lugged out. In literally minutes, they locked down a flawless semicircle defense, with their backs glued straight to the shield boundary. If everything went south, they could just take 1 step back into absolute safety. 5 tense minutes ticked by. Then the hissing started. The entire tree line began to rattle, and massive shadows blurred between the trunks. Those monsters knew damn well we were there. They were just playing mind games before striking. They were sizing us up, counting our numbers, and pulling off whatever counts as tactical planning. Inside a grotesque, 6-legged monster brain. But then, 10 of them snapped and aggressively burst from the woods. 5 level 1s and 5 lethal level 2s, blitzing straight toward our front lines. Hold! My soldiers held their ground. Not because the beasts were out of range. Trust me, they weren't, but because of the terrain. That dense forest right behind them meant that, if we dropped them too far out into the open, harvesting those valuable corpses would force us to march straight into the woods, and diving headfirst into a thick jungle, where visibility is less than 30 feet. In any direction, while carrying heavy muskets that take 30 seconds to reload. Yeah, that's not bravery, that's a certified speedrun. To the afterlife. Suddenly, the beasts slammed into our barriers, stumbling as they desperately tried to scramble over. The exact millisecond they cleared the choke point. Fire! 20 elite riflemen unleashed absolute hell simultaneously. 100 devastating projectiles flying at point-blank range. Every single monster dropped instantly. 10 for 10. Absolute perfection. And this is where our brilliant new system totally paid off. The harpoon squad rushed to the front, slammed heavy hooks deep into the dead beasts, and yanked the massive bodies right back behind our defensive line. Took seconds. No one had to wander out into the danger zone. Nobody broke the rigid formation, and 0 souls were exposed to a surprise ambush. Just absolute clockwork. Hook and drag, hook and drag. Those high-value level 2 corpses got top priority. Cracked open on the spot by our ruthless extraction team. Because remember, every single level 2 is a guaranteed mana crystal. That's exactly 5 level 2 kills, and 5 sweet crystals secured. Meanwhile, the entire forest was absolutely losing it. The hissing grew louder as the trees began to violently thrash. That first wave? Nothing but a warm-up. Now, the real monsters were finally coming out to play. They burst from the tree line in 1s, 2s, and then whole packs swarming from every single angle. Fire at will. My shooters immediately unleashed hell. Deafening gunfire echoed through the dense woods. It was perfect for shredding the beasts right in front of us, but completely through stealth right out the window. That massive racket was practically a dinner bell for every monster. Within a mile radius. Are we done yet? We're running dangerously low on ammo. With guns locked and loaded, and 5 level 2 crystals secured, we were finally good to go. Those glowing gems went straight into the severance box, and the heavy purple metal lid slammed shut, sealing them tight. Fall back. Everyone inside the perimeter. Now. 100 battle-hardened soldiers turned on their heels, and booked it straight for the protective shield. They were sprinting like Olympic athletes with a serious fire lit under them. The monsters gave chase, of course they did. But the exact second they hit the light tree's protection zone, the entire horde ground to a screeching halt. It looked as if they had smashed face-first into an invisible brick wall. They just stood right there, screeching and snarling, absolutely livid but completely unable to cross the line. Meanwhile, my 200 reserve troops waiting inside the base had already locked down their defensive formations. Guns cocked, ready to absolutely obliterate whatever came next. I carried the severance box over to the light tree, gripping it tightly in both hands. 5 pristine level 2 crystals were resting inside, totally stable and intact. Even inside the barrier, they hadn't degraded a bit. This magical lunchbox actually works. I gave the ultimate command, and my troops braced for impact. With a single thought, I deactivated the light tree's barrier. Instantly, the ravenous beasts outside surged forward, but my 200 reserves were already aimed down sights, just waiting to fire. Pop! I flipped the lid, revealed the 5 glowing black crystals, and slammed them directly against the ancient bark. This was the exact moment the entire operation led up to. Every scout we deployed, every barrier we built, every single bullet fired, and every hook spear thrown. That frantic sprint back to base was all for this. Instead of leaving our shields down for agonizing hours, just praying we could hold off the endless horde, harvesting those crystals, and juicing up the world tree before we got overwhelmed. We were sitting ducks for mere minutes, maybe less, just 5 crystals in. The tree absorbs them and the barrier snaps right back up. The monster horde slams into a dead halt again,
screaming in pure frustration.
Just like that, 15 minutes. Out in the open, 5 massive crystals secured, absolutely 0 casualties, and the shield was down for less than 2 minutes. I looked down at the severance box in my hands. This literal purple lunchbox that an entire civilization almost went extinct to protect, that a corrupt government tried to confiscate, and that somehow ended up in my territory, through a wild chain of coincidences, honestly so unreal that even a manhwa author wouldn't dare write it. And I couldn't help but smirk. We just completely broke the game. From here on out, everything becomes faster, safer, and infinitely more efficient. Hunt outside, stash the high-grade crystals in the box, stroll back inside, drop the shield for a split second, feed the tree, pop the shield back up, rinse and repeat. The little hamster Gardriella was keeping alive, just for her own twisted amusement, had just figured out how to shatter the entire hamster wheel. 30 seconds. To drop the entire shield, overcharge the tree, and reactivate our defenses. The whole process took 30 seconds. Boom! 5,000 energy points instantly banked. Full protection restored, leaving the monsters outside howling in completely helpless rage. I used to be able to make a whole sandwich in the time this used to take, but now, I can't even finish a single. The severance box is officially the greatest exploit I never even built. Armed with this thing, my entire expansion strategy shifted overnight. No more betting the entire kingdom on massive, life-or-death battles. No more sweating bullets through nerve-wracking hours of total vulnerability without a shield. Now it's a cakewalk. Deploy a specialized hunting squad outside, slay the monsters, cram their crystals into our cheat code lunchbox, walk back inside, drop the shield for a quick 30 seconds, and boom, done. Rinse and repeat multiple times a day. I immediately dumped all 5,000 energy points into summoning 100 new Treeborn soldiers, stacking them with my existing 50. That gave me a hardcore core of 150 elite professionals to anchor and lead my 300 civilian militia troops. I instantly organized them into rotating, hyper-efficient hunting squads, equipping them with heavy wooden carts for looting and mobile cover. The results were absolutely beautiful. We were pulling in 10, 15, even 20 crystals per run. And with multiple runs a day, it was a total goldmine. Just straight up, safe, reliable passive income. My entire territory was growing like compound interest. Insanely slow at first, but then skyrocketing out of control. Within just 7 days, I finally farmed enough energy to max out my light tree to level 2. But right after that, I did the absolute hardest thing I've ever had to do in either of my 2 lives. I didn't upgrade. Look, I know. Every single fiber of my being was screaming at me, just smash that level up button already. A bigger domain, overpowered weapons, it was right there. But my brain stepped in. The same genius brain that made me a top-tier student back in school. The one that got me through the absolute hell of H-Zone. And crucially, the one that doesn't let my lower half do the thinking. That brain told me to sit my butt down, lock in, and actually think. See, here's the real problem: your average lord takes about 3 grueling months just to advance from level 1 to level 2. Even elite, hyper-talented lords with massive backing need 2 months. Meanwhile, I was about to pull it off in under 4 weeks. That doesn't just look impressive, it looks incredibly suspicious. The exact second my territory ranks up, the mother tree over in the light domain is going to trigger a massive alert. Territory upgraded. Every single high-ranking power broker in the capital will get that ping. And when they realized that some random slum kid from H-Zone, a complete nobody that everyone had already written off for dead, just leveled up, faster than anyone else in 150 years of recorded history. Yeah, they won't be sending a congratulatory gift basket. They're going to send an entire squad of investigators. And those investigators are going to scan my land and find 600 citizens. 600 real people with their own private thoughts, their own fragile loyalties, and their own fatal weaknesses. People who can easily be interrogated, ruthlessly manipulated, or hit with mind-scrambling confusion spells. The kind of high-tier magic that forces you to spill every dark secret you own. And the absolute biggest, most dangerous secret in my entire territory is that little purple box the Central Council has desperately been trying to seize from the elves. The literal millisecond anyone from the council finds out that I'm harboring a severance box, it is game over for me. They will snatch it instantly. They've got the legal authority, the overwhelming military might, and absolutely zero reasons to show mercy to some insignificant, lowly level 1 lord rotting away in the H-Zone, to hoard the absolute most broken, high-value artifact on the entire continent. Can I actually fight them? Let's be real. My muskets absolutely shred black beasts, but against a high-tier mage or a battlemaster, I'd need World War II level firepower minimum to even stand a fighting chance. Right now I'm rocking early 1500s guns. That leaves me about 400 years short of being a threat. So the play here is pure stealth. Stay invisible. Stay boring. Act exactly as utterly unremarkable as everyone already thinks I am. Luckily, the light tree lets you bank energy. Instead of forcing an immediate upgrade, I can stockpile power like a squirrel, hoarding nuts for winter. When that 3-month mark hits, the standard timeline to level up, I'll finally flip the switch. I'll jump to level 2 and everyone will just think, oh look, the H-Zone kid actually survived. Took him the normal amount of time, too. How cute. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I'll have 3 months of insane banked energy, a highly trained army, a secret alliance with the elves, a severance box that nobody knows exists, and a territory loaded with gunpowder. With armed soldiers, the lord everyone forgot about will stay. Forgotten completely on purpose. Being underestimated isn't a weakness. It's a masterclass strategy. The most dangerous threat in the room is always the one nobody's watching. So for the next 2 months, my official cover story is simple. A struggling, pathetic new lord in the H-Zone, barely scraping by. Nothing to see here, folks. Please look somewhere else. But my actual reality, quietly building, the most technologically advanced, terrifying military force this continent has ever witnessed. Backed by elite elf intelligence, powered by a highly classified artifact, and fueled by the knowledge of an entire civilization that spent its entire history perfecting the art of blowing things to pieces. Low profile, massive ambition, and zero patience for anyone who tries to touch what's mine. The universe dumped me in the H-Zone to die. Instead, I'm turning the H-Zone's isolation into an unbreachable fortress. Nobody comes here, and nobody is watching. This place is a total ghost town, which means absolutely nobody sees the storm brewing, until it completely blindsides them. 3 months. That's our countdown to go loud. For 2 months I kept my head down. 2 straight months of acting like a total nobody. Just your average, struggling rookie lord. Completely harmless. Definitely not hoarding an absolute cheat code level of power. My daily routine became a beautiful, mechanical grind. Wake up, deploy the hunting squads, slay monsters, harvest their crystals, shove them right into the magic inventory box, head back, feed the world tree, and repeat. My hunters got so ridiculously cracked at this that we literally began clearing out the local monster spawns. The neighborhood beasts were essentially like, yeah, let's pack up and not live next to the lightning gods. And they straight up abandoned the zone, which was a massive win because a clear perimeter meant my teams could venture out way further. They set up tactical outposts, anchored directly to our shield's border. Perfect little defensive pockets, where the hunters could operate with zero stress. If things ever hit the fan, they just take 1 step back into the invincible safe zone. It's like having a literal respawn point, parked right outside the boss room. 2 months of this insane grind, and my energy bank skyrocketed to a massive 300,000 points. Just let that massive number sink in for a second. 300k. Remember, when I first spawned here, I had a measly 1,000. I was practically crying tears of joy over 6,400 after my first real war. Now I'm flexing a 300,000 bankroll and I'm still hoarding it, because I am playing the ultimate long game. The 200 IQ play. While stockpiling all this raw power, I put every single worker on building my absolute masterpiece. A star fortress. The Olympic. The most lethal, highly sophisticated defensive layout that pre-modern military engineering could ever dream of. Visualize a perfect hexagon centered right on the world tree, fortified with 3 lethal layers of defense. Layer 1. The outer perimeter. Just basic, chest-high stone walls, barely a meter tall. You're probably thinking, that's it. A single meter? Yep. Because these aren't actually meant to block incoming beasts. They're gun rests. My riflemen mount their muskets right on top, unleashing hell from a perfectly stabilized, braced position. And we're not just talking standard muskets here. I've been grinding like crazy these past 2 months. Say hello to the heavy matchlock, a 20-pound beast.
Sporting a 15mm body.
It's actually smaller than the standard 20 mil. Now that sounds totally backwards, until you understand how ballistics work. A longer barrel means insane range and pinpoint accuracy. The only catch: no regular human can actually aim this thing freehand. It's like trying to shoulder fire a whole tree trunk. So I built dirt-packed chest walls to act as built-in bipods. And right behind those walls is a massive trench, 4 meters deep and 10 meters wide. Forget my old, amateur 3.5-meter ditch. This thing is practically an Olympic swimming pool. Except, instead of water, it's filled with pure despair for any beast that falls in. Moving on to layer 2 behind the trench is a 3-meter wall made of heavily compacted earth, recycled straight from the trench dig, thick and solid. Anyone holding the top has a perfect, unobstructed line of fire, right over the first wall and straight down into the pit. If the monsters somehow breach the outer defense, they'll plunge right into the gap, allowing our second wall defenders to rain hellfire on them. It's literal fish in a barrel. And that trench is not just a trap, it's my ultimate bomb pit. My explosive charges have gotten way bigger. More gunpowder, nastier shrapnel, and way more weight. They're so heavy that nobody can throw them more than a few meters by hand. Even my improvised catapults can only lob them, maybe a few dozen meters max, but dropping them into a massive 10-meter wide ditch. Crammed packed with bloodthirsty beasts? Yeah, that's a delivery method I can work with. Next up, layer 3, the inner fortress. 5-meter walls, and they're getting taller by the day. This is the ultimate stronghold, our absolute last stand. Because if they break through here, it is officially game over. I even set up dedicated artillery positions right on top. Wait, artillery? Do we actually have cannons now? Well, no, we don't. And there's a good reason for it. My dwarves can easily forge short-barreled mortars. Just simple metal tubes designed to lob solid iron balls. But here's the brutal reality of cannons versus muskets. In the specific war we're fighting, cannons are built to psychologically terrify humans. A solid cannonball tears through an enemy formation, instantly deleting 10 guys, while the other 1,000 lose their minds and run. That's textbook psychological warfare, complete morale destruction. But these black beasts, they don't have morale. They don't panic, and they sure as hell don't retreat. You can literally blow 50 of them to pieces, and the remaining 500 will just keep charging without blinking. So, a slow cannon that fires 1 solid slug every few minutes, and might only take out a single beast? Yeah, it's objectively trash compared to 50 muskets, unleashing a relentless hail of lead in that exact same time frame. If I want artillery to actually wipe out a swarm, I need high-explosive shells. But I can't mass-produce explosive ordnance just yet. I lack the precision manufacturing, the advanced fuses, and the raw materials. So, for now, my heavy artillery positions are staying completely empty, safely reserved for future tech. Consider it a personal promise that one day, those platforms will be locked and loaded with weapons that make this world's high magic look like literal party tricks. But as of right now, my fortress is absolutely bristling with muskets. Every single person in my territory owns at least 2 of them. My dwarf squad has been forging guns non-stop for 2 straight months, and their craftsmanship is hitting insane new levels. We've evolved from making adequate gear to crafting genuinely elite firearms. Meanwhile, my soldiers have gone from asking, "Wait, which end does the bullet come out of?" to, "I can snipe a moving target at 150 meters in my sleep." Behold, a hexagonal star fortress fortified with 3 defensive rings, Hundreds of loaded muskets, trenches packed with explosives, heavy guns lining the parapets, and a massive stockpile of 300,000 energy points banked for a rainy day. And the best part? The rest of the world still thinks I'm barely scraping by and clinging to survival. Out here in the H-zone. Just one more month of playing dead. And then the real show begins. 3 months. I waited 3 agonizing months. I felt like a kid staring at a massive Christmas present. He's strictly forbidden from opening until December 25th. Except my present was a massive territory upgrade, and Christmas was the exact strategic date when flexing this upgrade wouldn't make me look suspiciously overpowered. But finally the big day arrived. With 300,000 energy points sitting in the bank, I casually dropped 100 grand on the upgrade, which, by the way, low-key felt like paying off a minor parking ticket, with a briefcase absolutely overflowing with cash, pocketing the other 200k for a massive shopping spree. Suddenly, the light tree pulsed, the ground violently shook, and my safe zone expanded from a modest 500 meters to a massive 2 kilometers in every direction. My borders completely exploded, going from under a single square kilometer to a whopping 12.5 square kilometers. That's 16 times larger. 16. I now literally own dense forests, wide open plains, rolling hills, and even a natural river. Like, an actual flowing river right inside my borders. Unlimited fresh water on tap. Just a month ago, I was rationing pathetic radish soup. And now I'm a prime waterfront landowner. But honestly, I couldn't care less about the real estate. I only cared about one thing. I bolted to the light tree and immediately pulled up the weapon catalog. And there they were. Flintlock muskets. I might have let out a little squeal. I'm neither confirming nor denying anything. Now let me break this down for you. With the absolute hype of a man who has been desperately waiting for this moment, since carrying a trash hand cannon that literally required 2 whole people to fire. Here's why. Flintlocks are an absolute game changer. A flintlock swaps out that annoying burning match cord for a piece of flint that strikes a steel plate to generate an instant spark. Sounds like a minor upgrade, right? Oh wow, you just changed how it ignites. What's the big deal? Trust me, it is massive. Let me count the ways. First up, speed. No more fumbling with a smoking hot rope while trying to reload. The flint is already locked and loaded on the gun. Cutting out that extra step means faster reloads. It might not look like much, but on a chaotic battlefield, every single split second is the difference between blowing a monster away and becoming its afternoon snack. But the real revolution here? No more open flames. Remember the spacing nightmare with my matchlocks? Every single soldier had to carry a lit, burning cord at all times. They were literally walking powder kegs. If you stood just a bit too close to your buddy, his spark could accidentally detonate your gunpowder bag, and boom, you're both human torches. So, everyone had to spread way out, resulting in incredibly thin lines and pathetic firepower concentrated per meter of the battlefield. Sure, multi-ball loading helped patch the issue, but let's be real, it was always a massive compromise. But with flintlocks, say goodbye to slow-burning cords and open flames. No more worrying about accidentally setting your buddy on fire, which means my troops can finally stand shoulder to shoulder in ultra-dense formations. Tight lines, packed tight, unleashing maximum firepower per meter. Welcome to the absolute meta of line infantry. Welcome to the devastating power of volley fire. Welcome to what military history nerds back on Earth lovingly call rank shooting. And trust me, it's not just about spraying more lead. These tight setups completely solve my communication nightmare. On a chaotic battlefield where giving orders means screaming at the top of your lungs over deafening gunshots and screeching monsters, an officer can only control the soldiers who can actually hear him. With old-school matchlock spacing, one officer could barely manage 20 guys, scattered all over the place. But with tight flintlock formations, that exact same officer can now command 50, maybe even more, all packed closely together, well within shouting distance. Same amount of leadership, way more boots on the ground per officer. A massive controllable army with flawless coordination. It's a literal force multiplier that costs 0 extra resources, just by having them stand closer together. Plus, I already had 150 elite, tree-born professional soldiers, acting as the backbone of my officer corps. Armed with these new flintlocks, every single leader becomes 10 times more effective, which instantly buffs my entire army's efficiency. That means I can deploy much larger units. With insane discipline. Oh, and by the way, those empty artillery slots. On my fortress walls? Yeah, they're still waiting. Here's the thing. My dwarves can technically craft short-barreled mortars, but right now they'd only be firing solid iron balls. And solid cannonballs against a horde of black beasts are basically just overpriced paperweights. You're lucky if you snipe a single beast every few shots. Meanwhile, 50 muskets can delete 50 beasts in that exact same window. Cannons need explosive shells to actually wipe out swarms, and I just can't craft those yet. But now that I've finally hit level 2, unlocking better tech is only a matter of time. Plus a massive 200,000 energy points sitting in the bank. The countdown is officially on for explosive shells, next-tier firearms, and literally everything else. Meanwhile, over in the H-zone, yours truly just quietly low-keyed into a level 2 lord. We're talking 16 times more territory. A star fortress, game-changing flintlock tech, that sweet 200k energy reserve, and a secret alliance with the elves that nobody sees coming. And the best part? I pulled it all off while the entire world thought I was barely scraping by. But surprise! While everyone else was drooling over basic flintlocks, I spotted a hidden gem in the level 2 catalog. That made my inner military history nerd absolutely skip a beat. Cannons. Well, okay, sort of. Most of the options were just short-barreled mortars. Basically just glorified metal bowls that lob iron balls in a general upward direction. Not exactly what I'd call high-tier artillery, more like highly aggressive pottery. But buried deep within all that mediocrity was an absolute masterpiece. The Frankish cannon, a true breech loader. It's fast-firing, lightweight, and operates on a simple vibe. I don't care about your range, because I'm gonna blast you 5 times. Before you can even reload once. Let me break down exactly why. I almost kissed my tech tree when I laid eyes on this thing. Standard cannons are strictly muzzle-loaded. You have to shove gunpowder all the way down the barrel, manually ram a massive cannonball in after it, light the fuse, and boom. Then you waste the next few painful minutes scrubbing it out, letting it cool down, and reloading the whole setup before you can fire again. Against humans? Sure, that works totally fine. A single devastating cannonball can shatter an entire enemy formation's morale. But against relentless black beasts who literally don't feel fear, you get off exactly 1 shot, and by the time you're even close to ready for a second, those monsters are already chewing through your artillery crew. The Frankish cannon completely solves this nightmare. With the most brilliant, elegant hack in early artillery history, the sub-cannon system. The main gun itself is literally just an empty barrel. The gunpowder and the projectile are pre-packed into compact, detachable chambers called sub-cannons. Think about it like this. They're essentially heavy-duty ammo cartridges the size of a coffee thermos. You just slot one in, fire, rip it out, and instantly slam the next one right in. We're talking rapid fire, boys. Insanely fast for this era, making it an absolute S tier. But of course, you're wondering, what's the catch? Oh, trust me, there is a massive catch. Its range and accuracy are completely dog water, especially compared to standard, front-loading cannons. See, the sub-cannon doesn't get a perfect seal. Against the main barrel, meaning crucial gas leaks right out. The raw power plummets, and your cannonball just flies wherever the hell it wants. But honestly, I don't need range. These monstrosities are blitzing right at me from a mere 100 meters, not camping out in some castle a kilometer away. What I desperately need is sheer volume. More shots. More lead. A relentless wall of flying metal. And the Frankish cannon delivers that exact destructive energy. Another massive perk? The thing is incredibly light. Because of the sub-cannon design, the main barrel doesn't have to tank the full force of the explosion, which means the walls can be way thinner. Thinner walls equal a major weight reduction. Some variants are literally just rolled up iron sheets, held together by reinforcement rings. My dwarves could probably forge these bad boys while sleepwalking. And don't get me started on the cooling. Standard cannons absorb all that intense heat straight into their thick barrels, slowly cooking themselves from the inside out. You end up needing wet rags, cooling rods, and pure prayer just to keep them from exploding. But the Frankish cannon has got an open back end. Superheated gas vents out naturally, and those thin walls radiate heat like crazy. This beauty can keep blasting long after a normal cannon becomes a molten hazard. We're talking 500 pounds per unit, at a dirt-cheap exchange rate of just 100 energy points each. It's light enough for my boys to manually manhandle across the field, without needing horses or oxen. which is absolutely clutch, because I currently own 0 draft animals. Seriously, our entire logistics network is powered by pure human stubbornness and sheer desperation. So I bought 100. Yup, 100 full cannons. Most of them went straight onto my Star Fortress walls, finally filling those empty artillery slots I'd been hoarding for the past 2 months. The leftovers were immediately deployed to my field units to act as mobile heavy fire support. Just picture it. A squad of elite musket troops with a devastating Frankish cannon, rolling right alongside them on a wooden war cart. The muskets are locked in for precision kills, while the cannons absolutely shred anything that gets too close with rapid-fire iron balls. Next up, I dropped some cash on flintlock muskets. At 6 energy points each, they cost twice as much as a matchlock. But damn, they are worth every single point. I immediately started upgrading my veterans' gear. We're talking tight, dense formations, shoulder-to-shoulder gunning, and devastating volley fire, the whole 9 yards. Let's do a quick inventory check on my supposedly struggling and barely surviving territory. Here's what we're packing now. Flintlock muskets completely replacing the old matchlocks. Across all my elite units, 100 heavy Frankish cannons, mounted on fortress walls and mobile field carriages. An OP Star Fortress with 3 massive defensive rings, trenches and bomb pits, 450 highly trained soldiers, including 150 lethal, tree-born professionals, 300 support workers who can also double as sharpshooters, 20 dwarf blacksmiths forging top-tier weapons 24/7, 1 elf mage overclocking our food supply with speed wheat, a secret high-level alliance with the elf race, a highly classified severance box, a casual 200,000 energy points sitting in reserve, and 12.5 square kilometers of prime territory, which, mind you, was less than a single kilometer 2 months ago. The rest of the world thinks I'm on life support. Meanwhile, I literally just built a cannon factory. The play here is to lay low, act small, and stay completely invisible. At least for now. I was so hyped. 100 brand new flintlock muskets, freshly harvested right from the light tree, distributed straight to my top-tier troops for field testing. The future of warfare had officially arrived. Dense lines, synchronized volley fire, a total military revolution. My soldiers loaded up, took aim, and pulled the triggers. Bang! 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 Click, 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 click. 30 out of 100 guns completely jammed. 30. Just dead silence and sad little clicks. The flint struck the steel, shrugged, and basically said, "Yeah, I don't really feel like sparking today." A massive 30% misfire rate. My soldiers looked at me, looked down at their new flintlocks, looked back up at me, and then, in what I can only describe as a unanimous vote of absolute no confidence, all 100 of them marched right up to me and said, "Yeah, we want our old matchlocks back." Honestly, I couldn't even blame them. Imagine being in the heat of battle. Picture this. A wild beast is charging straight at your face. You pull the trigger, ready to blow it away, and your gun just goes click. No bang, no bullet, absolutely nothing. Just you, holding a completely useless metal tube, and a very hungry monster that's about to turn you into lunch in 3 seconds. I glared at that stupid light tree, and let out a string of Russian curse words that I definitely didn't learn in Sunday school. You literally sold me defective garbage. This light tree, this sacred, holy gift from the heavens, supposedly the divine protector of all intelligent life, this ultimate glowing beacon of hope and civilization, just scammed me with knockoff early-model flintlocks that have the reliability of a cheap, dollar store umbrella in the middle of a Category 5 hurricane. See, here's the thing. My Earth history knowledge should have warned me before I wasted all that precious energy. Flintlocks didn't just replace matchlocks overnight. There was this massive, super awkward transition phase where flintlocks existed, but literally nobody wanted them because they constantly misfired. The whole mechanism of flint striking steel is just fundamentally trash. In its early versions, sometimes you get no spark, sometimes it's a weak spark, and sometimes it sparks, but fails to actually ignite the gunpowder. So every single trigger pull is basically a coin toss between having a deadly weapon or just an expensive stick. It took literal decades of refinement before these things were actually reliable enough for real armies to put them to use. But the light tree, in all its infinite wisdom, decided to dump the prototype beta test version on me, an early access release packed with game-breaking bugs. So, I went back to the tree to investigate, And that's when I uncovered the most infuriating catch. Sure, level 2 unlocks flintlocks, but the actually good flintlocks, the ones that won't randomly blow up in your face, require a partial upgrade path leading toward level 3. The tree uses this incredibly annoying paywall system, where you have to sink energy into incremental upgrades, just to make your gear functional. To get that crucial 30% upgrade for reliable guns, I'd have to shell out a whopping 300,000 energy. 300,000. That is literally my entire life savings. The precious energy I spent 3 agonizing months hoarding, and I have to blow it not on reaching level 3, and not on recruiting new troops, but just to make my guns work. Not by buying brand new weapons, but by fixing a massive design flaw in what I already had. Honestly, that scam of a tree shouldn't have sold me these in the first place. It's like buying a brand new sports car, only to be told, oh, you wanted an engine that actually starts? That's a premium add-on. Turns out I got stuck with the bare-bones base model. Just a steering wheel, empty promises, and good vibes. My absolute masterpiece of a plan to upgrade to level 2. Mass-produce advanced flintlocks, build a modern unstoppable army, and completely steamroll the entire continent? Utterly ruined. I couldn't just hand my troops weapons that only work. Like 60% of the time. That's not a disciplined military force. That's a straight-up gambling operation. So all 100 flintlocks were thrown straight into storage, locked away until the glorious day I can actually afford to unlock the patch. For guns that actually shoot whenever you pull the damn trigger. Wow, what a concept. Absolutely revolutionary. Even my soldiers willingly went straight back to their old matchlocks, without throwing a single complaint. They literally hugged those outdated fire-cord guns like long-lost brothers, whispering, "We missed you, reliable friend who actually goes bang." But hey, the silver lining? My Frankish cannons work flawlessly. 0 misfires, 0 technical glitches, 0 reliability issues. Just pure, beautiful, rapid-firing devastation. Insane reload speeds. Heavy artillery that delivers exactly what was promised on the box. Turns out this sub-cannon breach system is completely idiot-proof. Just load the slot, fire the shot, swap it out and repeat the carnage. My dwarves are absolutely obsessed with them. But to actually deploy 100 of these bad boys effectively, I need a highly trained artillery division. Like real professionals. Not just random ex-cons I hand a massive cannon to and say, hey, wing it. Masterful artillery is pure science, angles, split-second timing, flawless coordination, and a precise loading sequence. You can't just pick this up in a casual weekend workshop. Standard infantry? Sure, draft some random civilians, teach them how to point, shoot, and try not to die. But specialized cannon crews? Those have to be spawned directly from the light tree. Elite, tree-born artillery experts, blessed with the built-in instinct of how to not blow their own faces off. Which means burning way more energy on high-tier recruitment, which means my massive gold reserves are completely melting away, which means my entire timeline for level 3 keeps getting pushed further back. The light tree giveth defective garbage, and the light tree aggressively taketh away my entire budget just to fix it. I'm seriously starting to think. Honestly, this tree and my old landlord's toxic ex have one major thing in common. They both absolutely nuked my master plans. At the worst possible moment. But hey, at least the ex didn't rob me of 300,000 energy points for the privilege. So, I had to drop some serious cash. Massive budget upgrade. We're talking 1,000 new troops, spawned directly from the light tree. 300 artillerymen to man my 100 heavy Frankish cannons, plus 700 elite musket soldiers, to serve as the brand new backbone of my army. Now, why the sudden, insane recruitment flex? Because of a little disaster. Let me break down the single darkest day in my territory's short history. About a month ago, I sent out what should have been a routine hunting party. 100 guys, mostly raw civilian recruits from the light domain, with just a few seasoned officers sprinkled in to keep order. The mission was simple: go out, blast some beasts, grab their crystals, and clock out. They'd done this a dozen times before. First, it was a total cakewalk. They slaughtered a bunch of monsters, secured bags of crystals, and started heading back. Easiest day ever, right? Wrong. 3 level 1 scrub beasts literally burst out of the dirt, right beneath their feet. Just 3 low-tier monsters. Against a literal 100-man armed platoon. What happened next should have been an absolute joke. 3 beasts versus 100 loaded guns. Do the math, that's 33 guns pointed at each monster. Even with your eyes closed, you win those odds. Instead, my civilian troops completely lost their minds. They just started spraying and praying in every direction. Inside a tightly packed, suffocating formation, rifles are going off left and right, bullets ripping through their own squad, like the world's most catastrophic fireworks show. People screaming, bodies dropping. It was pure, unadulterated chaos. The final casualty report? Over 40 men dead or mangled, from 3 tiny beasts. And the worst part? It was almost all friendly fire. My own idiots literally executed each other in the crowd. Point-blank range. Honestly, those beasts probably died of sheer confusion rather than bullets. 3 monsters managed to trigger 40 casualties, and they barely had to lift a claw. They just spawned in, and let human stupidity do the rest of the heavy lifting. And that's the exact moment I realized. Using civilian recruits as frontline cannon fodder was completely over. Done. Dead. Never again. Honestly, you can't even blame them. The light domain trains its citizens strictly in old-school melee combat. We're talking swords, spears, and shield wall formations every single winter. A whole month of brutal drills and pike squares. They actually know how to fight, they're not incompetent. They've just been trained for a completely different kind of warfare. Slapping a modern assault rifle into their hands and saying, "Hey, forget everything you've spent your entire life learning. Just spray and pray instead." Yeah, that doesn't work. Not in a few weeks and definitely not in a few months. Because the second real panic sets in, human instinct takes over. And their instincts are a complete disaster for firearms. So this time I went all in on tree-born professionals. Elite soldiers who come preloaded with the perfect training, the right tactical instincts, and most importantly, the basic ability to not shoot their own teammates. The moment things get terrifying. Now, I didn't just fire my old civilian squad. They just got a major reassignment. Think basic garrison duty, wall guards, and base defense. Crucial roles where they can stay safely behind fortifications, blasting outward at clearly identified enemy targets, with 0 friendly troops standing in their line of fire. Turns out it's a lot harder to shoot your buddy when he's standing directly behind you, and the bad guys are all out front. So here's how my military is looking right now. A strike force of 1,000 hardened professional soldiers, around 200 civilians holding down the garrison, and a few hundred support workers handling farming, heavy construction, and logistics. We're talking a real army now with actual structure, and a proper chain of command, but adding 1,000 extra mouths to feed immediately triggered a massive supply crisis. My current 500 acres of farmland only yields about 100,000 pounds of grain, which used to be plenty when we only had 600 people, but now our numbers are over 1,600 and skyrocketing. Yeah, the math is definitely not matting. I need way more land, more farmers, more elf mages to magically speed grow the crops. Basically, more of everything, which means it's officially time to head back to the light domain for shopping trip number 3. Except this time, I'm not just buying rations and recruiting convicts. I need to finally sit down with the elves for a serious diplomatic meeting. A face-to-face meeting. We've been partners for months, but we haven't actually exchanged a single piece of loot yet. They handed over the severance box purely on faith, and I've been way too swamped building my own territory to ship out any gunpowder. It's finally time to pull up with real guns and live ammo, and prove to the entire elf race that betting on the weird human lord with the exploding metal tubes was the absolute smartest investment they've ever made. Load the guns, pack the powder, and ready my best sales pitch. The broke kid from the slums is about to stroll into elf high command, carrying weapons that could completely reshape their entire civilization. Yeah, no pressure.